The courtroom was packed. The air was thick with tension, the kind that clung to your skin and made your heartbeat race. Elon Musk sat at the defense table, his hands folded neatly in front of him, his posture calm but his mind whirling. The sound of whispers filled the room as the doors swung open, and the judge took her seat at the front of the courtroom. Judge Sarah Bennett was known for one thing above all else, her ruthless efficiency and her quick wit, which she wasn't shy about using on anyone, especially someone like Musk. Elon had faced many challenges in his life, starting and running Tesla, the setbacks with SpaceX, the never-ending battle against his own critics. But this was different. This wasn't about rockets or electric cars. This was personal. This lawsuit could destroy everything he'd worked for, tarnish his legacy forever, and ruin Tesla's credibility at a time when it needed a boost the most. But as the judge began speaking, no one expected what happened next. "Mr. Musk," Judge Bennett began, her voice sharp, every word precise. "I must say, you're an interesting man. A billionaire with a flair for innovation and drama. But I wonder, can you innovate your way out of this one?" The courtroom went silent. The room seemed to hold its breath as all eyes turned toward Elon. The judge had just mocked him, and not subtly. It was an attack, a verbal jab meant to belittle him in front of everyone. Yet, Elon didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. His defense team sat in stunned silence, unsure how to react. Some of them looked uncomfortable, others simply resigned. They'd prepared for many things, but they hadn't prepared for this. Judge Bennett continued, her words dripping with sarcasm. "I'm curious, Mr. Musk. You've conquered the electric car industry, built rockets that go to space, but can you beat this lawsuit? Because if you can't, well, let's just say the public is going to have a field day." The courtroom gasped collectively. The tension in the air was now almost unbearable. Elon could feel the eyes of the entire courtroom on him. But it wasn't the judge's mocking tone that bothered him, it was the realization that this case wasn't just about the law. It was about reputation, about public perception. People were already forming opinions about him, about Tesla, about everything. And the judge's words were only fueling that fire. For a brief moment, Elon allowed himself to feel the weight of it all, the scrutiny, the pressure. He was used to it, but this was different. This was more than just defending a company or a product. This was about defending everything he had built. He knew he had to be careful, but he also knew he couldn't back down. Not now, not ever. He stood up slowly, his movements deliberate. His gaze never wavered from the judge, who was now leaning forward, a slight smirk playing on her lips as if she'd already won. "Judge Bennett," Elon began, his voice steady but sharp. "You're right about one thing. I am a man who thrives on challenges. But let me be clear, this is not just another case. This is not a challenge I'm going to back down from. Not now, not ever." The room was silent again. The judge's expression shifted, just slightly, but it was enough. She had underestimated him. She had mocked him, but now, he was speaking directly to her, not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence. Judge Bennett raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" she asked, her voice low, almost a challenge in itself. "Yes, that's so," Elon said, his gaze never leaving hers. "And when this is over, you'll see why." He returned to his seat, but the air had shifted. The judge's smirk faltered for a moment, replaced by a flicker of doubt. She quickly masked it, but it was clear that she hadn't expected this response. The courtroom had expected him to lash out, to make a desperate plea. Instead, they had witnessed something entirely different. Elon Musk was playing a longer game. He wasn't here to defend his ego, he was here to win. As his defense team gathered around him, whispering furiously among themselves, Elon's mind began to race. He had expected to be mocked. He had expected to face an uphill battle. But now, he had something more powerful than just evidence and lawyers. He had a plan. Mr. Musk, Judge Bennett's voice broke through his thoughts. We'll continue this tomorrow. I expect you to come prepared with more than just lofty promises. The courtroom is no place for theatrics. Elon nodded, his expression unreadable. I'll be ready, he said simply. As he stood to leave the courtroom, the weight of the moment settled over him. The fight had just begun, and he knew that what lay ahead was going to be more than just a battle of legal minds. It was going to be a battle for his legacy. The courtroom drama had only just begun, but Elon Musk was already in his element. He had faced much worse, much bigger challenges. But this time, the stakes were higher. His reputation, his companies, and his future hung in the balance. And though he'd been mocked, ridiculed, and underestimated, he knew one thing for sure: he wasn't about to let anyone take away what he had fought so hard to build. As he walked out of the courthouse, the echoes of the judge's mocking words still rang in his ears. But they didn't deter him. In fact, they only fueled him. He wasn't just going to win this case, he was going to make sure everyone knew it. And that, he thought, was where the real challenge lay. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elon Musk's journey wasn't one of overnight success. It was a labyrinth of calculated risks, gut-wrenching failures, and endless hours spent obsessing over the future. Born in Pretoria, South Africa, in 1971, Elon was the son of a Canadian model and a South African electromechanical engineer. His childhood was far from ordinary. In fact, it could be described as the perfect storm that forged the man who would later disrupt entire industries. At the age of 10, Elon began reading voraciously, everything from science fiction to books about physics and engineering. He was captivated by the idea of changing the world, and as a boy, his mind was already racing with the possibilities of technology. Yet, the world around him was far from kind. His parents divorced when he was just 9 years old, a fact that would shape much of his emotional life. His father, a brilliant but often distant man, moved away, leaving Elon and his brother, Kimball, to be raised by their mother, May, a strong and independent woman who worked hard to support them. Elon often felt out of place. He was an introvert who preferred books and computers to socializing with his peers. Kids at school didn't understand him, they found his intelligence intimidating, so he became the target of bullying. The isolation only fueled his determination to succeed and to prove that he was more than just the awkward kid who spent his time on his computer. It was in this loneliness that Elon's obsession with technology and the future took root, and the drive that would later fuel his rise to stardom in Silicon Valley was born. But it wasn't just the drive that defined him, it was the failures. When Elon was in high school, he taught himself computer programming and created and sold a video game called Blaster to a local magazine for $500. That small victory lit a fire in him. The taste of entrepreneurship was sweet, but soon after, the road became rocky. He attended Queen's University in Canada for 2 years before transferring to the University of Pennsylvania in the United States. There, Elon earned degrees in both economics and physics, a combination that reflected his unique ability to balance business acumen with technical genius. But the real test came after graduation when he faced his first taste of failure. In 1995, Elon dropped out of Stanford University after just 2 days. His decision to leave the prestigious institution came after his realization that the internet was a frontier he couldn't ignore. He had a vision, something bigger than school, bigger than the constraints of conventional thinking. Elon was certain that the future of business and technology was tied to the digital world, and he wasn't going to wait to see if he was right. He dove headfirst into the internet startup world and co-founded Zip2, a company that created an online city guide. Despite early struggles, Zip2 gained traction and eventually sold to Compaq for nearly $300 million in 1999. But that victory was bittersweet. Musk's share of the sale was $22 million, but he was still haunted by a deep sense of dissatisfaction. Elon had always been driven by the belief that he was meant to do more, to change the world in a way that no one had yet imagined. The success of Zip2 felt like the first stepping stone in a journey that would demand much more from him. From there, Musk founded X.com, an online payment company, in 1999, which would later become PayPal after a merger. PayPal was eventually sold to eBay for $1.5 billion in 2002, and Musk walked away with $180 million. Most people would have considered this the peak of their career, but for Elon, it was just the beginning. After his success with PayPal, Elon set his sights on a far more audacious goal: space. He founded SpaceX in 2002 with the mission of making space travel affordable and ultimately colonizing Mars. People laughed. It sounded absurd. At the time, the idea of a private company launching rockets into space seemed impossible. But Musk wasn't deterred. He had a vision that extended far beyond what most could comprehend. At the same time, he took the helm at Tesla Motors, a fledgling electric car company that many considered a long shot. The odds were stacked against both SpaceX and Tesla, and for a while, it looked like both companies were destined for failure. SpaceX's early rocket launches were failures, and Tesla was losing money hand over fist. Musk was criticized, mocked by the media, and nearly broke several times. But each time, he found a way to bounce back. In fact, it was his sheer refusal to give up that became one of his most defining characteristics. Despite near financial ruin, he continued to bet everything on his companies, his vision, and his belief that the world could be better, if only people could see it. By the time the lawsuit against him began, Elon had faced down bankruptcy, criticism, and countless obstacles. But what most people didn't understand was that these setbacks were part of his process, not reasons to quit. Musk wasn't just trying to create successful companies, he was trying to push humanity to the next stage of its evolution. His failures were stepping stones, and every failure made him more determined. His work at SpaceX was redefining the space industry. His work at Tesla was changing the way the world thought about energy and transportation. His passion wasn't about becoming a billionaire, it was about leaving a legacy. But as Elon sat in the courtroom, facing the mocking judge and the high-profile lawsuit, the question wasn't about what he had already accomplished. The question was whether he would let this challenge define him. Would he emerge victorious once again, or would this be the one fight that left him shattered? His reputation, his companies, and his future were all on the line. But one thing was clear, this wasn't just about legal strategy. This was about something deeper, the same relentless drive that had always pushed him forward. This was a man who didn't quit. And the courtroom would soon learn that they had underestimated him. The courtroom was far from ordinary. It was a war zone where every word, every gesture could tip the balance of power in a case that had now captured the attention of the nation. The case against Elon Musk had the makings of a media frenzy. In one corner, the Tesla CEO, an enigmatic billionaire, known for his groundbreaking companies but equally notorious for his public controversies. In the other, a well-armed legal team, eager to tear apart the empire he had worked so tirelessly to build. And in the center, Judge Sarah Bennett, sharp, sarcastic, and unyielding, who had already begun to show just how far she was willing to go to make Musk squirm. It was only day 2 of the trial, and already things were starting to spiral. What had initially seemed like a routine business lawsuit had quickly evolved into a battle over Musk's reputation, a clash of egos, and a fight for control of the narrative surrounding his companies. The press outside the courthouse was in full force, cameras flashing, reporters eager to get their shots of Musk, who, despite his usual calm demeanor, was visibly tense. Elon sat silently at the defense table, his fingers drumming lightly against the wood as his legal team whispered amongst themselves. The stakes had grown higher than he ever anticipated, and it was clear that Judge Bennett wasn't going to make this easy. She had already shown she was willing to play dirty, and now, it was time to see if he could navigate this mess with his usual strategic brilliance, or if this would be the one challenge that would break him. As the session began, the prosecution presented their next witness, Linda Cross, a former Tesla executive with deep knowledge of the company's inner workings. She was a woman with a cold, calculating presence, her sharp eyes scanning the courtroom as she made her way to the stand. Linda had left Tesla just months before the lawsuit had been filed, and her departure was far from amicable. "Ms. Cross," the prosecutor began, "can you tell the court about the internal environment at Tesla during the period in question?" Linda didn't hesitate. "Yes, I can," she said firmly. Tesla was, and still is, a company built on ambition. But underneath that, there were systemic issues, ethical concerns, and a complete lack of accountability in some departments. I was personally concerned about the pressure that was being put on employees to meet unrealistic targets, often at the cost of safety. The room grew tense. Every eye in the courtroom was trained on Linda as she recounted the details of internal memos, emails, and conversations where Musk himself had allegedly pushed the company to make decisions that favored speed over safety. Linda's testimony painted Musk as a leader who valued innovation at the expense of his own people, an image that, if allowed to stand, could seriously damage his reputation. Elon's defense attorney, Mark Davis, stood and interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "Objection, Your Honor. This is pure speculation and hearsay. Ms. Cross has no direct evidence of any such claims." Judge Bennett looked over at the prosecutor, her gaze cold. "Sustained. Ms. Cross, I suggest you stick to the facts." But Linda wasn't done. "I have more," she added, her voice laced with vindication. "I was specifically told by higher-ups to falsify safety records and to minimize issues that could damage Tesla's image. And when I refused to comply, I was let go." The room buzzed with the weight of her accusation. Elon's jaw clenched, and for the first time, his calm demeanor wavered. This was no longer about business decisions, it was about personal attacks. Linda's words were not just damaging to Tesla's image, they were a direct attack on him. And despite the protests of his defense team, the damage had already been done. The media would latch onto this. The headlines would write themselves. As Linda continued her testimony, Elon's mind was racing. He knew the stakes had just been raised to an entirely new level. The narrative was no longer focused on business practices or technicalities. It had shifted to something much darker, his character. His actions. His leadership style. "Do you have any evidence to back up your claims?" Mark Davis asked, his voice tight with frustration. Linda paused for a moment, then smiled almost imperceptibly. "I do. I have emails, memos, and even audio recordings." A gasp swept through the courtroom. Elon could feel his heart sink in his chest. If those recordings were admissible, if they were real, this could be the smoking gun that brought everything down. His entire empire, his reputation, his companies, his future, was hanging by a thread. The judge's gavel struck sharply, pulling everyone's attention back to her. "Ms. Cross, please present your evidence." With a slight nod, Linda handed over a folder containing printed copies of emails, internal reports, and a USB drive containing the audio files. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence as the prosecution began to play one of the recordings. It was Elon's voice, clear and unmistakable, speaking to a senior Tesla executive about the need to push through certain safety concerns to meet an important production deadline. The recording was damning. Elon's voice was calm, even reassuring, as he discussed the need to balance speed and safety. He didn't directly order the falsification of records, but his words implied it. He spoke of the pressure to meet quarterly targets, the importance of Tesla's image, and the need to avoid negative media coverage at all costs. Elon's stomach churned as the recording played. It wasn't exactly a smoking gun, but it was close enough to put a serious crack in his defense. His voice was there, unmistakably, pushing for results. But that was the way business worked, wasn't it? Deadlines, pressures, impossible expectations. Elon had always operated with a sense of urgency, a relentless pursuit of perfection. But now, that drive was being weaponized against him. The judge's cold eyes flicked over to Elon, and for a brief moment, he felt the weight of her gaze like an ice-cold blade. She knew the implications of this case. She knew how to wield her power. And now, it was clear, Judge Bennett had every intention of testing just how far Musk would go to protect his empire. Elon felt the ground shift beneath him. This wasn't just about defending a company, it was about surviving a war of perceptions, of emotions, of reputations. The storm was rising, and there was no telling just how far it would go. As the courtroom adjourned for the day, the weight of what had just transpired hung over Elon like a dark cloud. He had always known that the fight for Tesla and SpaceX would be difficult, but the battle he was facing now was different. It wasn't just a fight for his companies. It was a fight for who he was. For what he stood for. Elon knew that this wasn't the end of the battle. In fact, it had only just begun. The prosecution had dealt the first blow, but he was far from defeated. He had survived worse challenges, had come back from more devastating setbacks. This was just another obstacle in his path, one he would navigate with the same relentlessness that had carried him through the toughest moments of his career. But he couldn't afford to let his emotions cloud his judgment. He needed to think strategically, to act with precision. The next move would be crucial. And for the first time in this trial, Elon Musk felt the weight of his own humanity pressing down on him. It wasn't just about business decisions anymore. It was about something deeper, the essence of who he was and the legacy he wanted to leave behind. And the storm? Well, it was far from over. Elon sat in his corner of the courtroom, his hands tightly clasped in front of him as he watched the prosecution continue their relentless assault. Every word they spoke seemed to land like a hammer, each accusation more damaging than the last. His legal team, while skilled, was struggling to keep up with the weight of the evidence being presented. But as the trial wore on, a single thought kept running through his mind: this is far from over. The tension in the air was palpable. The room felt suffocating, every eye fixed on the proceedings as the day stretched into late afternoon. Musk had weathered a lot in his life: financial ruin, public mockery, the collapse of rockets and electric cars, but nothing had prepared him for the psychological toll this courtroom drama was beginning to take. It wasn't the accusations that bothered him. No, it was the feeling that he was losing control. For someone like Elon Musk, control wasn't just about managing a company, it was about the narrative. About steering the conversation in his direction. And at this moment, he wasn't in charge. But that was about to change. As the prosecution prepared to call their next witness, a surprising figure entered the courtroom, a person no one had expected to see. The doors opened, and in walked Bill Gates. The crowd gasped, a murmur spreading like wildfire. The Microsoft billionaire was known for his occasional involvement in high-profile events, but his appearance at this trial was nothing short of a shock. Everyone knew that Gates and Musk had clashed in the past, publicly disagreeing on numerous topics ranging from artificial intelligence to the future of space exploration. Their rivalry was a well-documented part of Silicon Valley lore. The judge looked at Gates as he strode confidently to the witness stand, his face unreadable. Elon, too, was taken aback. This wasn't just a businessman walking in, this was a titan of the industry, someone who had often been seen as the foil to Musk's own rise. His presence sent ripples through the room, and for a moment, everything seemed to slow down. "Mr. Gates," Judge Bennett said, her voice laced with curiosity. "What brings you to this courtroom today?" "I'm here to testify," Gates replied smoothly, his voice calm and measured. "I believe the case against Mr. Musk is founded on misconceptions and a lack of understanding of how the tech industry operates. And as someone who has spent decades in this space, I feel it's important to set the record straight." Elon's jaw tightened as he listened to Gates' calm, deliberate tone. The stakes had just been raised to another level. Musk was no stranger to controversy, but now it seemed like one of his most prominent adversaries had entered the ring on his behalf. It was a twist he never saw coming. As Gates began his testimony, he outlined his experience in the tech industry, detailing his own challenges and the scrutiny he had faced in the early years of Microsoft. He spoke of how public perception often didn't align with the realities of running a tech company and how tough decisions were sometimes misunderstood by the media and the public. But what really caught everyone's attention was when Gates began to speak directly to the specifics of the case. "In all my years in this industry," Gates said, "I've never seen a company as ambitious as Tesla. Elon Musk is an unconventional leader, but that's what makes him successful. He doesn't follow the usual corporate playbook. But to suggest that he's involved in any kind of malicious intent or unethical behavior is not only unfair, it's inaccurate." He continued, offering his own observations of Tesla's operations, arguing that innovation and progress often come at the cost of mistakes and oversights. In Gates' eyes, Musk wasn't the villain the prosecution was painting him to be. Instead, he was an entrepreneur pushing the boundaries of what was possible, and sometimes that meant taking risks that others would shy away from. Gates' testimony resonated with many in the courtroom, especially the jury, who seemed more inclined to sympathize with the complexities of running a revolutionary company. But just as the mood seemed to shift in Musk's favor, the prosecutor made a calculated move, cutting in with a barrage of questions. "Mr. Gates, with all due respect, you're here testifying on behalf of a billionaire who stands accused of putting profit before people's lives. You speak of innovation, but can you honestly say that it is acceptable for safety to be compromised in the name of progress?" Gates, ever composed, leaned forward, his hands resting on the edge of the witness stand. "I'm not suggesting that safety should ever be compromised. What I'm saying is that the line between progress and failure is often very thin in our industry. What Mr. Musk is guilty of is pushing that line further than most are willing to go. But that doesn't mean he's a villain. It means he's a visionary." The prosecutor scoffed, clearly growing frustrated. "And do you also believe, Mr. Gates, that it's acceptable for a company's CEO to make decisions that could endanger the well-being of employees and customers?" Gates didn't flinch. "No. But I also believe that without people like Elon Musk, we wouldn't have the innovations we have today. The world needs disruptors, those who challenge the status quo. And sometimes, that comes with mistakes. But we can't judge progress by its failures alone." With that, Gates sat back, his words hanging in the air. The courtroom was silent for a moment, the gravity of his testimony sinking in. Even Judge Bennett seemed momentarily taken aback. It was clear that Gates had managed to shift the focus from Elon Musk's supposed mistakes to something far larger, the very nature of innovation itself. As the session adjourned for the day, the mood in the courtroom had changed. Musk, who had been on the defensive for so long, now felt a glimmer of hope. Bill Gates had given him the opening he needed. The battle wasn't over, not by a long shot. But the shift in momentum was undeniable. As Elon walked out of the courtroom, his mind raced. He was far from out of the woods, but the unexpected twist, the surprise ally in the form of Gates, had reignited a spark within him. He had always prided himself on his ability to turn challenges into opportunities. Now, he had a new angle to work with. And the courtroom, once his battlefield, was now becoming the place where he would fight back, not just for his reputation, but for his vision, for his future. Tomorrow would be a new day, and with it came a new strategy. Musk was ready for the next move. The days following Bill Gates' unexpected testimony had been a whirlwind. Public opinion was shifting rapidly. The media, once firmly aligned against Elon Musk, was now torn. Some hailed the intervention of Gates as a masterstroke, while others questioned the authenticity of such a high-profile, seemingly calculated move. But in the courtroom, the tension was palpable. The battle was far from over, and the stakes were higher than ever. Elon sat in his chair, his hands steepled in front of him, his mind calculating his next move. The day ahead promised to be a pivotal one. The prosecution had announced that their next witness would be someone even more damaging, a former Tesla engineer, Daniel Harris, who had worked on several high-profile projects within the company. Harris's departure from Tesla had been dramatic, to say the least, with the engineer going public with his grievances just months after leaving the company. His story had already garnered significant media attention, and now he was poised to testify against Musk. Elon's legal team had prepared for this moment. They knew Harris would be ruthless in his attack, attempting to paint Musk as a CEO who turned a blind eye to safety and ethics. But even with all the preparation, Elon could feel the weight of what was to come. This wasn't just another witness. Daniel Harris was about to deliver the emotional punch that could shatter the defense's fragile momentum. As the trial began, the mood in the courtroom grew heavy. The door swung open, and Daniel Harris walked to the stand. He was a younger man, with sharp features and a fire in his eyes. There was no mistaking the anger that radiated from him. It was clear that Harris wasn't just here to testify, he was here to make Musk pay. "Mr. Harris," the prosecutor began, "can you please tell the court about your experience working for Tesla and your reasons for leaving the company?" Harris took a deep breath and began. "I worked for Tesla for 4 years. I was on the team that helped develop the autopilot system and was involved in some of their most ambitious projects. At first, it was exciting. But over time, I began to see things that didn't sit right with me. There was a culture of pressure, secrecy, and, most disturbingly, a pattern of ignoring safety concerns. The more I tried to raise these issues, the more I realized no one wanted to hear them. And when I finally raised the alarm, I was let go." Harris's voice was filled with emotion. It was clear that his time at Tesla had left a deep scar. His words struck a chord with the jury, many of whom looked at Musk with a new sense of suspicion. This wasn't just a disgruntled ex-employee making vague accusations. Harris had been there, working behind the scenes. He knew the company's inner workings, and his testimony was full of chilling details that painted Musk as a CEO who cared more about achieving his vision than the lives of those who worked for him. The decision-making at Tesla, Harris continued, was often driven by timelines and profits, not safety. "There were moments when I would see issues with the autopilot system, but when I brought them up, I was told to focus on the big picture, not the small problems. It wasn't just a few isolated incidents, this was a pattern." The room fell into a stunned silence. The prosecutor pressed on, seeking to build the case against Musk by pulling more details from Harris. "And do you have any examples of Elon Musk's direct involvement in these decisions?" Harris paused, gathering his thoughts before responding. "Yes. On one occasion, I was in a meeting with Elon about a major software update. I voiced concerns about the potential risks of rushing the update, but Musk insisted that we needed to meet the deadline, regardless of the safety risks. He was fixated on hitting production targets. I could tell that he wasn't concerned with the potential consequences. He just wanted to be the first to market." Elon's face tightened as Harris's words hung in the air. He knew that the accusation was serious, but he also knew that this was the kind of testimony that had the power to turn the tide in the prosecution's favor. If this kind of testimony gained traction, it could damage not just his reputation but the public perception of Tesla's very mission. But as Harris continued, Elon's legal team sprang into action. Mark Davis, his lead attorney, stood and interrupted. "Objection, Your Honor," he said firmly. "The witness is offering personal opinions, not hard evidence. He is speculating about Mr. Musk's motives and actions." Judge Bennett nodded but allowed Harris to continue, though she instructed him to stick to the facts. Despite the objections, the damage had been done. The jury was already beginning to look at Musk with doubt in their eyes. And then, as if to escalate the situation even further, Harris delivered a final blow. "I wasn't the only one who noticed the pattern. In fact, I wasn't the only one who was concerned. There were multiple engineers and staff members who voiced their worries, but we were all dismissed. No one cared about our concerns. We were all told to keep quiet or leave." The courtroom was electric with the weight of those words. Harris had just dropped the bombshell. It wasn't just Musk's actions at the top of the company, this was a systemic issue that permeated throughout the organization. If the jury believed Harris, it wouldn't just be a verdict against Musk, it would be a condemnation of the entire culture at Tesla. Elon's stomach churned. He had faced many challenges before, but this was different. This was personal. This was a direct attack on his leadership, his vision, and his character. He had always prided himself on his transparency and his drive to push the limits of what was possible. But now, it seemed like that very drive had become his undoing. The emotional climax of the trial had arrived, and it hit harder than anything Musk had ever faced. As the prosecution rested its case, the room seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the final outcome. Musk was at a crossroads. He could either shrink back, letting this trial destroy everything he had built, or he could rise up, fight back, and prove that his vision was worth the fight. Elon took a deep breath and stood up. He needed to do something that no one expected. He couldn't let this narrative take hold. Not without a fight. "Your Honor," he said, his voice calm but filled with determination, "I would like to take the stand." The room fell into stunned silence. It was an unprecedented move. But Elon Musk wasn't one to follow convention. He was about to do something that would either win or lose the case. The room was dead silent as Elon Musk stood to take the witness stand. The surprise of his decision to testify had rippled through the courtroom like a shockwave, leaving everyone, including his own legal team, stunned. Musk had never been one to shy away from controversy, but this was different. He had just witnessed firsthand how deep the accusations against him could go, and now it was time to fight back with everything he had. As he made his way to the stand, all eyes followed him. His every step was measured, and yet, a visible air of determination surrounded him. Musk wasn't just walking into the courtroom today as a defendant. He was walking in as a man whose entire life's work was on the line. The judge, her eyes narrowed in curiosity, called the room to order. "Mr. Musk," she said, "please state your name for the record." "Elon Musk," he replied with quiet confidence. The prosecutor wasted no time. "Mr. Musk, you've heard the testimony of Mr. Harris, and you've seen the evidence presented by the prosecution. Can you tell this court why we should believe you when the allegations of negligence and willful disregard for safety have been so clearly demonstrated?" Musk took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling. His mind raced, but his expression remained calm. He had spent years navigating high-pressure situations. This was no different. This was the moment to reframe the narrative. It was now or never. "I understand the concerns that have been raised," Musk began slowly, his voice calm but firm. "Tesla is not a perfect company. We've made mistakes, we've faced setbacks, and we've learned from them. But to suggest that I have been reckless or that I intentionally put lives at risk is simply untrue." He paused, scanning the room. The jury, still processing the shock of his appearance, was now hanging on his every word. "I've dedicated my life to pushing the boundaries of technology," Musk continued, his eyes locking with the prosecution. "When we started Tesla, we didn't just want to build cars, we wanted to change the world. We wanted to reduce humanity's reliance on fossil fuels and make the planet a better place. That's been the mission from day one." The prosecutor interjected, her voice dripping with skepticism. "And yet, you've been accused of prioritizing profit over safety, over people's lives. How do you respond to that?" Musk's eyes flashed with intensity. "I have never put profit above safety. What we've done at Tesla is unlike anything that's been done before. We've created technologies that didn't exist, and with that comes risk. But it also comes with responsibility. I've always taken that responsibility seriously." He leaned forward slightly, his voice gaining strength. "When you're building something that has never been built before, there will be challenges. There will be mistakes. But the key is to acknowledge those mistakes, learn from them, and keep moving forward. We have done that at Tesla. We've fixed our mistakes, we've made our cars safer, and we've saved lives." There was a pause in the room as his words settled in. Musk wasn't just defending himself, he was defending his vision. The jury could feel the passion in his voice. He wasn't just the CEO of a tech company, he was a man who believed deeply in what he was doing. His mission was not some fleeting corporate goal, it was a personal crusade to better the world. The prosecutor, sensing an opening, pushed further. But what about the decisions you've made, Mr. Musk? You were aware of safety concerns, and yet you continued to push the timeline for product releases. How do you justify that? Musk's face remained impassive. As I've said before, every decision we make at Tesla is done with the understanding that we must push boundaries. But we do so responsibly. The timeline was not set for the sake of profit, it was set because the world needed these cars. We couldn't wait for the perfect moment. We had to act, and sometimes, that means taking risks. He paused again, this time letting the weight of his words hang in the air. If we waited for the perfect moment, we'd still be driving gas-guzzling cars. The perfect moment doesn't exist. Innovation means moving forward, even when things aren't perfect. But we are always improving. Every mistake is a lesson. The prosecution seemed momentarily taken aback by Musk's candidness. This wasn't the defensive, rattled man they had expected. Instead, they saw someone who was unyielding in his belief that he was doing the right thing. Musk was getting into a rhythm now, his confidence growing as he took control of the narrative. The reality is that Tesla has saved thousands of lives with our vehicles. We've reduced emissions and paved the way for a future where electric cars are the norm. That's not a mistake. That's progress. The prosecutor, now visibly frustrated, shot back, but what about the families who have lost loved ones due to your cars? How do you justify the cost of innovation when real lives have been lost? It was a question that hit Musk hard. For a moment, he faltered, the gravity of the situation settling in. He knew the risks that came with pushing the boundaries of technology. He had never shied away from them, but the pain of knowing that lives had been lost was something he carried with him every day. He looked down for a moment, gathering his thoughts before responding. Every life lost is a tragedy, and I don't take that lightly. But I would never, ever knowingly put anyone in harm's way. Every death is a personal failure for me. But that doesn't mean we stop moving forward. It means we work harder to make our cars safer, to learn from those tragedies, and to do better. That's what we do at Tesla. We never stop improving. The room fell into a heavy silence. Musk's words hung in the air, and for the first time in the trial, the prosecution seemed unsure. The jury, too, was visibly moved. Musk had just given the most emotional testimony of the entire trial. He wasn't just defending himself, he was laying bare his soul, his vision, and his unwavering commitment to his mission. The prosecutor, sensing the shift, quickly moved to another line of questioning, but the damage had been done. Musk had turned the tables. His raw honesty, his conviction, and his vision had resonated in a way no one had expected. He had just made the case for why he was more than just a CEO, he was a man driven by something larger than himself. As Musk stepped down from the witness stand, he couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. The emotional burden of the trial had been lifted. No longer was he just defending Tesla, he was defending everything he believed in. The jury filed out, and the courtroom buzzed with a new energy. The defense had made their case, but the final verdict was still unclear. Musk had spoken his truth, but would the jury buy it? Would they see him as the visionary he believed himself to be, or would they hold him accountable for the mistakes made along the way? One thing was certain, the outcome of this trial would define Musk's legacy. The future of Tesla, his vision for sustainable energy, and his entire career rested in the hands of 12 strangers. And for the first time in his life, Elon Musk wasn't sure how this story would end. The days following Elon Musk's testimony were some of the longest in his life. The tension in the courtroom had reached an all-time high, and while the defense had made its best case, no one knew how the jury would ultimately decide. The clock seemed to tick at an agonizing pace as Musk, his legal team, and even the media, all waited with bated breath. Everyone knew that the verdict would be a moment of reckoning, not just for Musk personally, but for Tesla, his vision for the future, and the world's view of technological innovation itself. The court reconvened one final time. It was late in the afternoon, and the heat of the trial still hung thick in the air. The judge, looking more serious than ever, called the court to order. "Will the jury please rise?" Judge Bennett's voice rang out. The courtroom, filled with anticipation, went quiet. Everyone stood in unison, the final moments of this drawn-out drama upon them. The jury had deliberated for 2 full days, and now it was time to face the consequence of their decision. The foreperson of the jury, a woman with graying hair and a steady hand, walked up to the judge, holding the sealed envelope. Every pair of eyes in the room was fixed on her. The media cameras clicked away, capturing the moment that would soon be broadcast across the world. Elon Musk stood tall, his posture straight and his face composed, though anyone who looked closely could see the tension in his jaw. Judge Bennett accepted the envelope and nodded. She turned to the jury. "Members of the jury," she said, her voice somber. "Have you reached a verdict?" The foreperson nodded. "We have, Your Honor." The judge motioned for her to read it aloud. "In the case of Musk v. the people of the United States," the foreperson began, "we, the jury, find the defendant Elon Musk, not guilty." There was a collective intake of breath in the courtroom. The words hung in the air, almost too monumental to fully grasp. The jury had found Musk not guilty. The weight of the decision was enormous, not just for Musk personally, but for the entire industry he had helped shape. For a moment, there was complete silence. No one moved. Musk stood motionless at first, his mind racing to process what had just been said. Then, slowly, a smile began to spread across his face. His shoulders relaxed, and for the first time in weeks, he felt the burden lift. The judge nodded, signaling for the court to be adjourned. "The defendant is free to go," she announced. "This court is adjourned." The room erupted into a mix of cheers and murmurs. Musk's legal team exchanged high fives, some hugging in relief. The media immediately began to shout questions, their cameras focused on the man who had been at the center of the storm. Musk, however, didn't immediately rush to speak. He stood in the middle of the courtroom, taking it all in. The magnitude of the moment was not lost on him. He turned to his team and offered them a single, grateful nod. "Thank you," he said quietly. As the room emptied, Musk stepped outside the courthouse, greeted by the flashing lights of hundreds of cameras. Reporters shouted questions, their voices almost drowned out by the overwhelming noise. Musk smiled faintly but didn't engage in the barrage of questions. Instead, he made his way to the waiting car, his mind already moving to the future. As Musk settled into the back seat of the car, he took a deep breath. The tension that had gripped him for so long was finally starting to dissipate. He thought back to the moments of the trial, the emotional climax, the raw defense he had delivered, and the feeling of standing tall when it mattered most. In that moment, he knew he had done more than just win a case. He had proven something greater. This trial had not been just about Tesla's future or his legacy, it had been about standing firm in the face of adversity. Throughout his career, Musk had faced immense challenges, from the early days of Tesla's financial struggles to the relentless pursuit of technological advancement. And in each of those moments, he had faced the critics and doubters head-on. But this trial had been different. This time, it wasn't just about the future of electric cars or Mars exploration. It was about his own integrity, his own character. It was a test of who he truly was, and whether he was willing to fight for what he believed in, no matter the cost. The trial had stripped him of the layers of public persona, of the carefully crafted image. What remained was a man, determined and unyielding, who had learned the hard way that not all battles were fought in the lab or on the launch pad. Sometimes, the real battles took place in the courtroom, where every word mattered, and every gesture could tilt the scales of justice. Musk couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude in that moment. He had emerged victorious, not just because the jury had believed him, but because he had stayed true to himself, his mission, and his vision. He had faced down the worst of his critics and had come out on top. But he knew that this was not the end of the story. The victory would be short-lived if he didn't continue to push forward, to innovate, and to keep striving for greatness. There would be new challenges, new obstacles, and new doubters. But now, more than ever, he understood the importance of resilience, of never backing down in the face of adversity. As the car sped away from the courthouse, Musk gazed out the window, watching the world pass by. The city was alive with energy, the hustle and bustle of life continuing as always. But for him, something had shifted. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like he had control over his destiny. In the days that followed, the media would buzz with headlines about the trial, about Musk's victory. But he knew that the true measure of success would not come from public opinion. It would come from the work he did next, the innovations, the risks, and the changes he would bring to the world. The story wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. The morning after the verdict, the weight of the trial's conclusion still hung heavily in the air. Elon Musk had been victorious, but the euphoria of his legal triumph was tempered by the realization of just how close he had come to losing everything. The case had been a trial not only of his company's practices but of his very character. While the world celebrated his innocence, Musk knew that the battle for his legacy was far from over. As he sat at his desk in the quiet of his office at SpaceX, surrounded by the hum of computers and the looming presence of the rockets that represented his vision for the future, Musk reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The triumph in the courtroom felt hollow compared to the endless hours of work, the sleepless nights, and the stress of balancing a global company's needs with the expectations of his employees, investors, and, most daunting of all, the public. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself a moment of peace. There was no lawsuit hanging over his head, no jury deliberating his fate. It was a brief, fleeting moment, but for that instant, he allowed himself to appreciate the quiet. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes, replaying the trial in his mind. He remembered the questions, the doubts, and the fiery exchanges. Most of all, he remembered his own words. The speech he had given from the witness stand had not just been a defense, it had been a declaration. He wasn't just fighting for Tesla's future. He was fighting for the very idea of progress itself. But even with the courtroom drama behind him, Musk knew that the world was watching. The public, as they often did, would move on to the next story, the next scandal, the next drama. But Musk's mission, his vision for the future of humanity, was much bigger than a courtroom. He couldn't afford to get bogged down by past battles. He had to keep moving forward. His phone buzzed on the desk, breaking his moment of contemplation. It was a text from his closest advisor, Robin. "We need to talk about the next phase. Are you ready for the press conference today?" Musk's mind immediately shifted gears. There was no time to dwell on the past, the future was waiting, and it wouldn't wait for him to catch up. He stood, grabbing his jacket, and headed out the door. The room was packed with reporters, their eager faces all angled toward the podium where Elon Musk stood, ready to address the world once again. The last time he had stood in front of a sea of cameras, the outcome had been uncertain. Today, there was a palpable sense of relief in the air, but also the heavy burden of expectation. Musk adjusted the microphone and cleared his throat. The questions were already coming at him from every direction, but for the first time in weeks, he felt calm. He had been through the fire and emerged unscathed. Now, it was time to speak about what truly mattered. "Good afternoon, everyone," Musk began, his voice steady. "I want to start by thanking everyone who believed in me and Tesla. The past few months have been incredibly difficult, but we've come out stronger on the other side. I stand here today not just as the CEO of Tesla or SpaceX, but as a man who has learned valuable lessons, both in business and in life. The reporters shifted in their seats, knowing that this press conference could hold more than just corporate updates. Musk had always been known for his unpredictable nature, and they were eager to hear what he would say next. "I'm not going to stand here and pretend that the trial didn't affect me. It did. It was a personal journey. It made me reflect on my decisions, the people I've worked with, and the responsibility I carry. But in the end, I have never wavered from my belief that progress requires risk. And yes, we've made mistakes along the way, but we own them. And we'll continue to learn and improve." The room was silent, absorbing the gravity of his words. Musk wasn't offering just a corporate apology, he was sharing a deeply personal reflection on his own journey. He continued, his voice growing more passionate. "I've always said that Tesla is more than just a car company. It's a movement. A movement toward sustainability, toward a future where we rely on clean energy and explore the stars. The mission hasn't changed. It will never change. And for all the obstacles we've faced, we will push forward. Because that's what we do. We innovate. We push the limits of what's possible." He paused for a moment, letting the weight of his words settle in. His eyes scanned the room, making contact with several of the reporters who had covered him in the past. There was a sense of respect in the air now, a recognition of the man who had just survived one of the most intense legal battles of his life and emerged victorious. "But," Musk continued, "this victory is not just mine. It's a victory for everyone who believes in the mission. It's a victory for the engineers at Tesla, the scientists at SpaceX, and the millions of people who are working every day to make this world better. We are all part of this journey." There was a soft murmur of agreement among the crowd, a feeling of solidarity. It wasn't just about Elon Musk anymore, it was about something bigger, something that had the potential to change the course of history. A reporter raised her hand, and Musk nodded for her to speak. "Elon," she began, "after everything that's happened, after the trial and all the public scrutiny, what's next for you? What's next for Tesla and SpaceX?" Musk smiled faintly, the familiar glint of determination returning to his eyes. "What's next is simple," he replied. "We keep building. We keep innovating. We go to Mars. We create a world powered by sustainable energy. The mission continues. And I'm just getting started." The press conference had been a success. The media had hung on his every word, and the buzz surrounding the event was palpable. But as Elon Musk left the room, he felt an odd sense of calm. The storm had passed, but the real work was only just beginning. He got back into the car, Robin beside him. The streets of Los Angeles were bustling, and Musk gazed out the window, reflecting on the road ahead. "Do you think they bought it?" Robin asked, her voice soft but knowing. Musk took a deep breath. "They don't have to. I believe in what we're doing. And that's enough." She nodded, though the doubt in her eyes wasn't completely gone. Musk understood. There would always be doubters, critics, and naysayers. But as long as he stayed true to his vision, he knew that he could weather any storm. They drove in silence for a few moments, but Musk's mind was already miles ahead. The world was waiting for the next big thing. The next innovation. And he was going to deliver it. "Robin," he said, turning to his advisor, "it's time to build the future. Let's make it happen." The weeks following the press conference were filled with a whirlwind of activity. The legal battle was behind him, but Elon Musk knew that his reputation, his entire legacy, was still very much in play. Tesla and SpaceX were growing at an unprecedented rate, and with that came new challenges, new responsibilities, and new opportunities. Musk's first big project post-trial was the launch of a new, groundbreaking initiative that would change the way the world viewed sustainable energy. It was no longer just about electric vehicles, it was about creating an entire ecosystem that could function independently of fossil fuels. The stakes were high, and Musk was determined to make this project the pinnacle of his career. The project had been in the works for years, and now, with the cloud of the trial lifted, Musk felt a sense of urgency. This was his chance to truly change the world. It wasn't just about making electric cars popular, it was about creating an energy system that could power the world cleanly and efficiently. This was his chance to leave a legacy that would last long after he was gone. The day of the big announcement arrived. Musk stood at the center of a massive stage in a sleek, modern conference room in California, flanked by Tesla's newest electric vehicle models and a brand new product that had the world's eyes glued to him. The air was thick with anticipation, the excitement almost palpable. Reporters from around the world were present, their cameras trained on Musk as he prepared to unveil what he had been working on for so long. He looked out over the crowd, his face a study in focus. Despite the magnitude of the moment, there was a sense of calm in him. He had always been someone who thrived under pressure, and this moment, this new venture, was no different. "Ladies and gentlemen," Musk began, his voice steady and confident. "Today is the beginning of something that will redefine the way the world looks at energy, and ultimately, the future itself. For years, we've been talking about sustainable energy, about reducing our carbon footprint, and about how we can build a future that's not just possible, but necessary." The room fell silent. Everyone was hanging on his every word. The tension was palpable as Musk paused, allowing the anticipation to build. "Today," he continued, "we are proud to announce the Tesla Power Grid, a system that will revolutionize the way the world generates, stores, and uses energy. This is not just an electric vehicle. This is the future of sustainable power. A world where homes, businesses, and even entire cities can rely on clean, renewable energy. No more dependence on fossil fuels. This is the future." The room erupted in applause. It was exactly the kind of game-changing innovation Musk had been working toward. Tesla's power grid was a series of interconnected solar arrays, power storage systems, and charging stations that would enable individuals and businesses to be fully self-sufficient, reducing the need for traditional power grids. It wasn't just a product, it was a complete rethinking of how energy should be harnessed, distributed, and used. Musk's eyes glinted with pride as he spoke. This is a massive step toward achieving global sustainability. But it's not just about what we've created today. It's about the future, the possibilities we've yet to unlock. This is just the beginning. While the Tesla power grid was met with excitement, Musk knew that the road ahead would be far from easy. The launch was just the first step, and now came the hard part, scaling the technology, overcoming bureaucratic hurdles, and persuading governments and corporations to adopt this new way of thinking. In the following weeks, Musk worked tirelessly, speaking with world leaders, legislators, and industry giants. He knew that to bring the Tesla power grid to the masses, he needed more than just market enthusiasm, he needed international support. But convincing the world to embrace such a revolutionary system, especially when it challenged the status quo, was not going to be simple. One of the biggest obstacles was the entrenched energy industries that still relied heavily on fossil fuels. Musk's proposal for a fully renewable energy system threatened to undermine their power, and it was clear they would not give up easily. Musk found himself at the center of a storm. On one side, he had governments, environmentalists, and forward-thinking businesses supporting his vision. On the other, he had the powerful oil and gas industries, which would stop at nothing to maintain their dominance. Just as Musk was starting to feel the pressure of the situation, an unexpected ally emerged. It came in the form of a leading global environmental organization, one that had long been vocal about the dangers of climate change and the need for action. The group had been keeping a close eye on Musk's work, and they recognized that the Tesla power grid was the breakthrough the world needed. The organization's CEO, Emily Patel, reached out to Musk personally, offering support for his initiative. Emily was a fierce advocate for climate change action, and she understood the importance of Musk's vision. With her organization behind him, Musk gained a powerful ally who could help sway political and corporate leaders to support the transition to renewable energy. Emily and Musk spent hours together strategizing the next steps. They knew that with the right combination of political pressure and public support, they could push the world's largest economies toward embracing clean energy. But the road ahead was still fraught with challenges. Musk's team had to work tirelessly to refine the technology and demonstrate its viability. While many believed in the potential of the Tesla power grid, the scale at which it needed to be implemented was unprecedented. The turning point came when a large city in California agreed to pilot the Tesla power grid, making it the first city in the world to completely rely on renewable energy from Tesla's system. The announcement made headlines globally, and the shift toward sustainability gained momentum. Musk stood in front of the press, speaking about the victory. "This is a huge step forward for humanity. A whole city, powered by clean energy. We're no longer talking about a dream. We're talking about a reality." The impact was immediate. Other cities, states, and even countries began to reach out, eager to learn more about how they could implement similar systems. The momentum was building, and Musk knew that they were on the cusp of something transformative. The Tesla power grid was no longer just an idea, it was becoming a global movement. The future was unfolding before Musk's eyes, and though the challenges were immense, he was more determined than ever to push forward. The courtroom battle had been a defining moment, but it was now in the rearview mirror. What mattered now was shaping the future, creating a world where clean, renewable energy wasn't a luxury, but a standard. As Musk looked out over the city from his office, he reflected on everything that had brought him here, the trial, the battles, the setbacks, and the triumphs. And he knew one thing for certain, this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but Musk was ready. He was always ready. The future was waiting. With the initial success of the Tesla power grid, Elon Musk was no longer just a tech mogul in the electric car space, he was a key player in the future of global energy. His vision had captured the attention of governments, business leaders, and environmental advocates alike, but as with every major innovation, there was a significant price to pay. Musk had created something revolutionary, and the forces that would resist its implementation were now beginning to mobilize. The battle wasn't just on the surface, with critics pointing out flaws in the new system, it was a deeper, more insidious fight. Musk had already seen the power that traditional energy companies held. They controlled the world's most valuable resource, and they weren't about to let a man from Silicon Valley change the entire energy landscape without a fight. Now, Musk was realizing that the corporate tug-of-war he was in wasn't going to be settled by innovation alone. It started subtly, with media outlets questioning the practicality of the Tesla power grid. Stories began to surface, questioning the viability of mass adoption, citing concerns over cost, infrastructure, and the ability to meet global energy demands. At first, Musk paid little attention. He had been down this road before with Tesla and SpaceX, public skepticism and criticism were just part of the process. But soon, the pressure started to build. Musk's inbox was flooded with reports of investors pulling back, concerns raised by key allies, and whispers of powerful figures within energy companies working to create alternative solutions. One afternoon, Musk sat in a meeting with his closest advisors and the head of Tesla's legal team, Michael Simmons. The latest report on the Tesla power grid was grim. Several large utility companies were actively lobbying against the grid's rollout, using their influence to prevent cities from signing on to Tesla's plan. They were leveraging their political connections to create roadblocks, casting doubts on the grid's ability to handle large-scale demand. "The more we push, the more they push back," Simmons said, his voice low and serious. "We knew this wouldn't be easy, but now we're talking about real political and financial muscle." Musk sat in silence, his mind whirring as he processed the situation. The entire energy industry was now under siege, and Musk wasn't just fighting for Tesla's success anymore. He was fighting for a future where clean, renewable energy wasn't the exception, it was the rule. The implications were staggering. The fight wasn't just about technology, it was about control. The corporations Musk had once admired were now the enemy. We need to outmaneuver them, Musk said finally, a sense of urgency rising in his chest. We need to show the world that what we're doing is not just an option, it's the only way forward. If we wait for the old guard to make the changes, we'll be waiting forever. To keep up the momentum, Musk knew he needed to alter his strategy. The conventional business methods weren't enough. He needed something more radical, more disruptive, something that would capture the attention of the public and, more importantly, the policymakers. The first step was to push for more ambitious public partnerships. He needed to align Tesla with the future of urban development and infrastructure, especially with forward-thinking cities that were already on the cutting edge of clean technology. Musk knew he couldn't fight the entire energy industry alone. He had to build a coalition of like-minded governments, businesses, and innovators who believed in the same vision. One city stood out as a potential ally, San Francisco. The city had long been a hub for tech startups and progressive policies, and it had already shown interest in the Tesla power grid. If Musk could get San Francisco to fully embrace Tesla's energy system, it would send a powerful message to the rest of the world. He worked tirelessly with his team, crafting proposals, meeting with local government officials, and even speaking directly with the city's mayor, Nadia Alvarez. She was known for her bold leadership and commitment to environmental causes, making her the perfect partner for Musk's ambitious goals. Over dinner one evening, Musk and Alvarez discussed the future of energy. The conversation was intense, filled with Musk's usual passion for the possibilities of the future. He explained how the Tesla power grid could help San Francisco not only reduce its carbon footprint but also become a beacon for sustainable living for the entire world. If we do this right, San Francisco could be the first city to be completely powered by renewable energy, without sacrificing growth or quality of life, Musk told her, his voice full of conviction. Alvarez leaned forward, considering his words carefully. This is a big step, Elon. A huge one. We're talking about transforming not just the way we generate energy, but the entire way we live. I know, Musk said. But we're talking about the future. We're talking about giving the next generation a world that's not just sustainable but thriving. We can't wait for the world to catch up with us. We need to lead the charge. After several tense weeks of negotiation, Alvarez made a groundbreaking announcement. San Francisco would be partnering with Tesla to fully integrate the Tesla power grid into the city's infrastructure. The deal was seen as a win for Tesla, and it sent shockwaves throughout the energy sector. News of San Francisco's commitment to Tesla's energy revolution spread quickly, and it had a ripple effect across the globe. Cities from Paris to Tokyo began to express interest, many of them in direct competition with each other to be the next to adopt the Tesla power grid. Musk's victory in San Francisco was more than just a local success, it was a validation of his vision. The media buzzed with excitement, and once skeptical investors began to turn back toward Tesla, recognizing the power of this move. But the war was far from over. Back at Tesla's headquarters, Musk sat in his office, watching as the news cycle shifted toward his success in San Francisco. The win had breathed new life into the company, but it also increased the stakes. The energy giants weren't going to let Musk take the market without a fight. Rumors began to surface that some of the largest oil companies were preparing to launch their own competitive systems, mimicking Tesla's model but with the weight of their global influence behind them. But Musk was ready. He wasn't interested in competing on the same old terms. He was here to change the world. Musk's response was as bold as expected. He doubled down on the idea of open-source technology. If the energy giants wanted to compete, they would have to build their systems on the same open standards that Tesla was using, no proprietary advantage, no corporate secrecy. He invited the world's largest energy companies to join him in this open movement, to pool their resources and collaborate toward a sustainable future. The future, Musk stated in a press release, is not about holding on to old power structures. It's about creating a new way forward for everyone. It was a risky move, an invitation to corporate giants who had spent decades consolidating power, but it was a challenge Musk believed in. The time for secrecy and competition was over. The future belonged to those who would work together to tackle the biggest issue facing humanity. Elon Musk's world was rapidly changing. The fight to revolutionize the energy industry was no longer just about technology, it was about power, influence, and the future of humanity itself. But Musk had always thrived in the face of adversity, and now, with San Francisco on his side and global attention focused on his every move, he was ready for the next phase of the battle. In the coming months, the clash with the corporate giants would intensify, and Musk knew the stakes had never been higher. It wasn't just a matter of business. It was a matter of survival, for the planet and for future generations. The tug-of-war had only just begun, but Musk was more determined than ever to fight for the future. And this time, he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for all of us. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The victory in San Francisco was a monumental step, but as Elon Musk watched Tesla's stock soar and the world's attention shift toward his efforts to revolutionize energy, he knew the real work was just beginning. While governments and cities around the world were starting to warm to his ideas, the true test would be whether Tesla could scale the technology quickly enough to meet the growing demand for clean energy. Musk's office, once filled with the usual cacophony of brainstorming and problem-solving sessions, had now become a war room for the largest mission he'd ever undertaken. He wasn't just launching new products anymore, he was launching a movement that, if successful, could reshape the entire global economy. The forces he was facing weren't just financial, they were ideological. Musk's first major breakthrough after San Francisco came when the European Union announced it would invest in renewable energy solutions. The EU had been slow to embrace Tesla's vision, primarily because of the entrenched influence of traditional energy giants. But as countries like Germany and France began to invest heavily in renewable infrastructure, Musk saw an opportunity. Tesla was invited to speak at a global summit on climate change and renewable energy, held in Brussels. World leaders, energy executives, environmental activists, and innovators from around the globe gathered in one place to discuss the future of energy. For Musk, it was a chance to push his message on the world stage, but it was also a way to confront the opposition head-on. As Musk stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of delegates, he felt a sense of purpose unlike anything he had ever experienced. This was it, the opportunity to inspire a global movement that would transcend borders, industries, and politics. The world is standing at a crossroads, Musk began, his voice calm but filled with urgency. We have a choice, we can continue down a path of destruction and dependency, or we can choose a future of sustainability and independence. The technology is here. The question is, are we ready to lead the change, or will we be left behind? Musk's words were met with rapt attention, the power of his message cutting through the noise of the room. For once, it wasn't just about Tesla's products or market share. It was about something far more profound, the future of the planet. The speech in Brussels became a turning point for Tesla. While there were still plenty of detractors, including politicians aligned with the fossil fuel industry and corporate leaders protecting their status quo, Musk's message resonated with the people. The media coverage was overwhelming, and within weeks, countries across Europe began to adopt policies supporting the rapid expansion of renewable energy sources. Musk's dream of transforming global energy wasn't just an ideal anymore, it was becoming a reality. However, as the support for Tesla's vision grew, so did the intensity of the opposition. Powerful lobbying groups, many with ties to the traditional energy sector, began pushing back harder than ever before. There were calls for investigations into Tesla's business practices, questioning whether the company was using its market power to manipulate public policy. Musk was now facing an existential threat, not from a single industry, but from an entire global system that wasn't ready to change. One of the loudest critics was the American Petroleum Institute, API, a coalition of oil and gas companies with significant political influence in Washington. They began a media campaign aimed at undermining Musk's efforts, portraying him as a disruptor with a dangerous agenda. The media, ever eager for conflict, seized on the story, amplifying the accusations that Musk was trying to destroy traditional energy markets. Tesla's legal team was working overtime. As the scrutiny of Musk's companies grew, the risk of legal challenges escalated. Various state and federal agencies launched investigations into Tesla's practices, asking whether Musk's companies were engaging in unfair competition or even violating antitrust laws. Musk, ever the strategist, knew this was part of the game. He had always played by his own rules, and now, more than ever, he needed to be prepared for battle. The legal challenges were not just about Tesla anymore, they were about his ability to push through a transformative idea, one that threatened the very foundations of the industries that had controlled the global economy for over a century. But Musk didn't back down. In fact, he doubled down. One morning, he called a meeting with Tesla's senior leadership team. "We're not just building cars or energy systems anymore," Musk told them, his voice resolute. "We're fighting for the future. And that means we have to prepare for a fight on all fronts, legal, political, and financial. We need to stay focused. Every challenge they throw at us, we'll throw it right back." Tesla's legal team, led by Michael Simmons, had already started preparing counter-strategies, working with global allies to combat the lawsuits. They were also lobbying in Washington, pushing for legislation that would make it easier for companies like Tesla to disrupt the energy market without facing unfair legal repercussions. Despite the legal challenges, there was a shift in public opinion. People were beginning to realize that the status quo wasn't working anymore. Communities around the world were seeing the real-time effects of climate change, from devastating wildfires to floods and heat waves. The urgency of the situation could no longer be ignored. Musk's relentless focus on the future began to resonate with young people across the globe. The Millennial and Gen Z generations, who were increasingly concerned about climate change and environmental sustainability, saw Musk as their champion. They were the first to rally behind him, organizing grassroots campaigns, social media movements, and rallies calling for a transition to renewable energy. This groundswell of support proved to be a game-changer. Political leaders who had been hesitant to embrace the energy transition began to feel the pressure from their constituencies. Cities that had previously balked at the idea of renewable energy investment started to change their minds, pushing forward with Tesla's vision as part of their urban planning strategies. With growing public support, Musk made the decision to escalate his push. It was no longer just about Tesla, it was about a global movement that could change the course of history. In a highly publicized move, Musk partnered with environmental organizations, cities, and governments to launch the Energy for All initiative aimed at providing affordable, sustainable energy to underserved communities worldwide. The initiative was an immediate success, garnering attention from every corner of the globe. Governments and multinational organizations began to pledge financial resources, and businesses were forced to reconsider their own strategies in light of the changing landscape. The final blow to the opposition came when Musk publicly challenged the oil and gas giants to adopt the same open-source approach Tesla had pioneered. He dared them to create their own solutions for renewable energy, while allowing others to build upon their technology. It was a challenge that the established energy companies could not easily answer. Musk had always been obsessed with the future of technology, and his ventures in artificial intelligence, space travel, and clean energy were all tied together by one central concept: using innovation to push humanity forward. His focus now was on taking Tesla's energy system to the next level. It wasn't just enough to build energy grids, Musk wanted to connect everything in real time, creating a seamless integration between renewable power sources, energy storage, and the consumers who used it. In a small conference room at Tesla's headquarters, Musk sat with his closest engineers, plotting the next step in his energy revolution. He had already spent years developing the physical infrastructure, the solar panels, the battery storage systems, and the grid itself, but now he had an idea for a deeper, more powerful way to harness the data that would transform the industry: artificial intelligence. What if we could create an AI that doesn't just monitor the grid, but actually predicts and adjusts to changes in demand in real time? Musk asked, leaning over the table, his eyes alight with excitement. The room fell silent. Musk had just introduced the concept of an autonomous energy grid, one that could analyze global energy patterns, predict fluctuations in consumption, and adjust the grid accordingly. It was a revolutionary idea, one that could increase the efficiency of the Tesla power grid by orders of magnitude. His engineers were immediately intrigued. One of them, a data scientist named Rachel Williams, spoke up, "You're suggesting we use AI not only to monitor energy use but to optimize it on the fly. We could allow homes, businesses, and entire cities to shift their energy consumption patterns based on real-time data, prioritizing the most efficient sources." Musk nodded. Exactly. If we use machine learning to predict energy demand and optimize supply from renewable sources, we could make the entire system virtually self-sustaining. Rachel's eyes widened as she grasped the potential implications. You're talking about a self-healing grid that can adjust without human intervention. It would make the entire energy sector more efficient, cheaper, and greener. Musk smiled. That's the idea. We need to make this happen. The pressure to make this vision a reality was intense. Traditional energy companies, despite their opposition to Tesla, had deep pockets, and they weren't going to sit idly by as Musk pushed further into their turf. The stakes were higher than ever, and Musk knew he had to move quickly. Meanwhile, the digital revolution was gaining momentum. Every week, new startups emerged, focused on AI, big data, and machine learning. The race for digital supremacy in the energy space was heating up, and Musk couldn't afford to be outpaced. In his private office, Musk spent countless hours brainstorming with Tesla's tech team, pushing them to make the AI-driven grid a reality. He wasn't just developing a new product, he was creating a new ecosystem, a system that would power the world, using data, algorithms, and cutting-edge technology. The challenges were monumental. The grid would need to handle an exponential increase in energy data and make near-instantaneous decisions to balance supply and demand. There were questions of security. How could they ensure that the system was safe from cyber attacks? And then there were the ethical considerations. How could they make sure that AI didn't inadvertently favor certain areas or communities over others? Despite the obstacles, Musk was relentless. He believed that technology was the key to solving humanity's most pressing issues, and if anyone could make this work, it was Tesla. After months of development and testing, the first version of the AI-driven energy management system was ready for a live trial. The team had built a prototype using Tesla's existing grid infrastructure, which would allow the AI to learn from real-world data and adjust to changes in energy demand. The trial took place in a small community outside of San Francisco, a place that had agreed to be part of Tesla's pilot project. Musk flew out to oversee the test, eager to see if his vision would come to life. Standing outside the local Tesla power grid station, Musk felt a surge of anticipation. He watched as the technicians booted up the system, sending the first data into the cloud. Within moments, the AI began analyzing energy usage patterns, learning from the data, and making adjustments to the grid. Ready? Musk asked, his voice steady but filled with excitement. Rachel, now overseeing the technical side of the project, nodded. Ready. The first test run was a success. The AI seamlessly adjusted to the real-time demands of the community, optimizing energy distribution to ensure the least amount of waste. It even predicted a spike in energy demand caused by a local event, adjusting the flow of energy from solar panels and battery storage before anyone even realized there was a surge. It was a moment of triumph, but Musk knew this was just the beginning. This was only a small-scale test, and scaling it to a global level would require overcoming significant hurdles. Still, the potential of the technology was undeniable. With this new AI-driven system, the world's energy systems could be transformed in ways that had never been imagined. As Musk's AI-powered grid began gaining traction, the opposition grew louder. The traditional energy companies, many of which had investments in fossil fuels, saw this new technology as an existential threat. They weren't just facing a loss of market share, they were facing a total disruption of the entire energy economy. The next phase of the battle was inevitable, legal and political battles that would attempt to slow down or even shut down Tesla's AI-driven grid. It wasn't just about Tesla anymore, it was about the future of the world's energy infrastructure. The traditional energy companies, with their powerful lobbyists and connections in government, weren't going to give up without a fight. Musk prepared for war. He knew that the success of the AI-driven energy grid would determine the future of the energy industry, and possibly the future of civilization itself. As Tesla pushed forward, Musk found himself in a dangerous game. His success in Silicon Valley, his global influence, and his willingness to challenge powerful interests had made him a target. Attacks from the fossil fuel industry intensified, and Musk found himself facing accusations of monopolistic practices, shady dealings, and even personal attacks on his character. In the midst of all this, Musk took a step back for a moment of reflection. Despite the noise and the opposition, one thought continued to resonate in his mind: the world was changing. This was the digital revolution, and whether they liked it or not, the old guard was being replaced by the new. He had been through difficult moments before, but this was a different level. The entire future of energy was in his hands, and the stakes had never been higher. The global energy revolution that Elon Musk had set into motion was far from easy. As Tesla's ambitious AI-powered energy grid began to take hold in cities around the world, the opposition escalated. Traditional energy companies, threatened by Musk's disruption, were no longer just trying to slow Tesla down, they were fighting for survival. A massive legal war was brewing, and it was clear that Musk would have to face an entirely new kind of battle. It wasn't just about winning in the courts, it was about protecting a vision that could change the world. It began with a lawsuit in the United States. The American Petroleum Institute, API, the lobbying arm of the oil and gas industry, filed a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against Tesla, accusing the company of engaging in monopolistic practices by using its AI-powered grid to undercut traditional energy markets. The lawsuit claimed that Tesla's growing dominance in the energy sector violated antitrust laws, as the AI system was allegedly manipulating supply and demand to push out competitors. The lawsuit was an immediate media sensation. Legal analysts and reporters speculated for weeks about the potential outcomes, and public opinion was divided. Some hailed Musk as a hero, a visionary challenging the entrenched powers for the good of humanity. Others were more skeptical, wondering whether Tesla's AI-driven system could indeed lead to an unfair market advantage. Musk, of course, wasn't one to shy away from a challenge. In fact, he seemed almost energized by the prospect of the fight. The day the lawsuit was filed, Musk sent an email to his legal team with a simple subject line: "Game on." Within hours, Tesla's legal department, led by the experienced Michael Simmons, had already begun developing their defense strategy. They understood that this wasn't just about a legal victory, it was about the future of energy. The courtroom drama that followed was unlike anything Musk had ever faced. The oil and gas giants had spared no expense, hiring the best attorneys, public relations firms, and lobbyists to mount a powerful offensive against Tesla. On the other side, Musk's legal team was a small but highly skilled group of tech-minded lawyers who were determined to protect Tesla's vision at all costs. The case was quickly dubbed the Energy War, and it attracted attention from all corners of the globe. Journalists, environmentalists, and policymakers tuned in as the battle unfolded in the courts. Musk himself, though not directly involved in the legal proceedings, was in regular contact with his legal team, offering insights and guidance from a strategic perspective. One of the key moments of the trial came when the defense team called on a series of Tesla engineers, including Rachel Williams, the AI expert who had helped develop the system. She was called to testify on the inner workings of the AI and how it actually worked in practice. Rachel sat in the witness chair, calm and poised. The prosecution tried to paint Tesla's AI as a dangerous and manipulative tool, capable of distorting energy markets for its own benefit. They argued that Musk was using technology to create an unfair advantage, undermining competition and exploiting loopholes in the law. But Rachel, in her testimony, dismantled their arguments with precise, logical explanations. The AI system is designed to optimize energy distribution for efficiency, sustainability, and cost-effectiveness. It is not designed to manipulate markets, and it's not doing so, she said, her voice unwavering. She explained how the AI continuously learned from energy consumption patterns and adjusted the grid accordingly. It was a system built on transparency, fairness, and the collective good, not one meant to destroy competition. The defense team backed her up with evidence of Tesla's open-source approach to technology, allowing other companies to access and build on Tesla's innovations, rather than hoarding them. The cross-examination was intense. The prosecution tried to poke holes in Tesla's claims, but the defense held strong, demonstrating that Tesla's AI-driven grid was a force for good, not a tool for monopolization. As the trial continued, the public's reaction became increasingly vocal. Social media exploded with debates over the case, with supporters of Tesla rallying behind Musk and the company's mission for a cleaner, more sustainable future. #EnergyForAll became a trending hashtag, with thousands of people sharing personal stories of how Tesla's technology had already improved their lives. Musk supporters, ranging from environmentalists to tech enthusiasts, began to amplify the message. They argued that Tesla's technology was not just good for business, it was essential for the survival of the planet. These supporters flooded the court of public opinion, demanding that policymakers take action in favor of a clean energy future. On the other side, the fossil fuel lobby launched its own counter-campaign. They painted Musk as a corporate overlord who was trying to monopolize the global energy market, undermining decades of investment in fossil fuels. Their message was clear: Musk was dangerous, and if he wasn't stopped, the energy market would never be the same again. But despite the backlash, Musk remained resolute. "I'm not trying to destroy the energy industry," he told a reporter in an exclusive interview. "I'm trying to save it. And in the process, I'm trying to save the planet." The legal war wasn't confined to just one country, it had become a global battle. As Tesla expanded its operations across Europe and Asia, governments and courts in other countries began to get involved. In Europe, Tesla had made significant strides, but it faced similar opposition. Traditional energy giants lobbied European regulators to impose restrictions on Tesla's AI-driven grid, arguing that it violated antitrust regulations and stifled competition. But Musk, ever the global strategist, had already anticipated this. He was building alliances with environmental groups, renewable energy companies, and even progressive governments that saw the future of energy as linked to sustainability. He was positioning himself as not just a businessman, but a global leader in the fight against climate change. In a pivotal moment, the European Union passed a resolution supporting the development of AI-driven energy grids, effectively giving Tesla a free pass to expand its technology across the continent. The decision was a landmark victory for Musk and a sign that his vision was gaining more traction than ever before. The ruling sent shockwaves through the energy industry. It was a stunning victory for Musk and Tesla, but more importantly, it was a victory for the future of renewable energy. The legal battle had been long, costly, and difficult, but it proved one undeniable truth: innovation could not be stopped. As the ruling was announced, Musk stood in front of the cameras with his characteristic calm. "This is just the beginning," he said, his voice resolute. "We have a long way to go, but today, we've taken another step toward a better, cleaner, and more sustainable world." Musk's victory in court had been monumental, but it didn't mean the battle was over. The energy industry, even in defeat, wasn't ready to concede. While Musk's revolutionary AI-driven grid was gaining traction, some powerful, unseen forces began to move against Tesla in more subtle and insidious ways. The court ruling had been a major victory, but it only fueled the fire for those who saw Musk's success as a threat to their own interests. The dark forces Musk now faced weren't just legal, they were financial, political, and social. Behind the scenes, a quiet war had begun, one that Musk would need to fight with a combination of grit, intelligence, and strategy. It started slowly, almost imperceptibly. Tesla's supply chains began to face delays. Materials for Tesla's solar panels and batteries were suddenly in short supply, causing production timelines to slip. It wasn't an accident. Musk's top supply chain officer, Emily Dyer, had confirmed that the shortages were highly coordinated. "Look at these shipments," Emily said to Musk during one of their routine meetings. "This isn't just supply chain disruption. These delays are being caused by specific companies. We've had issues with our lithium suppliers, and now even some of our solar panel materials are getting delayed. Someone is targeting us." Musk frowned, his eyes narrowing. "You think it's coordinated?" Emily nodded. "There's a pattern. We've had this kind of issue before, but now it's happening at a larger scale. I've seen similar delays in our parts for several other key components, and now they're popping up in multiple regions." Musk's mind raced. He knew this could be sabotage. The old energy guard had deep pockets, and they weren't above pulling strings in the shadows to slow Tesla's progress. For all of his success, Musk had made powerful enemies. Now, those enemies were resorting to corporate warfare to maintain their dominance. He wasn't going to let that stop him. "Get on the phone with our legal team. We're going to need a full investigation." As Tesla's global influence grew, so did the scrutiny from politicians. In Washington, several senators who had been longtime allies of the fossil fuel industry began to target Musk and Tesla with new legislative proposals. These bills, though disguised as environmental regulations, were designed to make it harder for Tesla to expand its AI-driven grid and renewable energy solutions. The legislation called for stricter regulations on the use of AI in critical infrastructure, arguing that such systems could potentially be vulnerable to cyber attacks. Though the proposals had little factual basis, they were dangerous nonetheless. If passed, they could create a maze of regulations that Tesla would need to navigate, slowing down their progress and adding tremendous financial strain. One morning, Musk found himself in a heated conversation with his top legal advisor, Michael Simmons. "They're at it again, aren't they?" Musk said, pacing the room, his hands in his pockets. "These new bills could set us back years. We'll be buried under bureaucratic red tape." Michael, always calm under pressure, adjusted his glasses. "Yes. They've got the fossil fuel lobby behind them. But we've fought bigger battles before. We'll need to rally our allies, environmental groups, clean energy advocates, and even some tech companies that see the bigger picture." Musk nodded, his face hardening. "I don't care who they have backing them. If they think they can stop us with politics, they've underestimated me." Alongside the political push, a sophisticated misinformation campaign began to take shape. Suddenly, news outlets, social media accounts, and blogs started pushing negative stories about Tesla. Headlines painted Musk as a reckless billionaire with a dangerous obsession with AI. The stories were filled with half-truths, exaggerations, and outright lies, claiming that Tesla's AI system had led to massive job losses, had the potential to cause widespread energy shortages, and even that Musk was secretly controlling government policies. The smear campaign was pervasive. On social media, bots and fake accounts flooded platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, spreading misinformation and stirring up distrust of Musk's companies. Meanwhile, respected news organizations, under pressure from sponsors and lobbyists, began to publish misleading reports questioning Tesla's methods and motives. The most damaging story was one that suggested that Musk had been secretly manipulating the stock market, using his influence over Tesla's energy systems to artificially inflate stock prices. This story picked up steam quickly, spreading across media outlets, even making its way into major publications. The public perception of Musk began to shift. No longer was he just a brilliant innovator, now, many saw him as a dangerous tech mogul who might be too powerful for society to handle. Musk had always been able to rely on his public persona and his ability to control narratives through social media, but this time was different. The misinformation campaign was coordinated and relentless. It wasn't just about headlines or tweets, it was about changing public perception, turning the masses against him. In response, Musk did what he did best, he leaned into transparency. He called a press conference to address the rumors head-on. Standing before the cameras, his voice steady but filled with conviction, Musk said, "I understand that some people are afraid of the future we're building. But let me make one thing clear, Tesla is not manipulating the market. We are not building an empire, we are building a future. A future where energy is clean, sustainable, and accessible to all. And if that scares some people, then I'm doing my job." The press conference was a calculated risk. Musk knew it wouldn't silence all his critics, but he had to take a stand. His words rang true for many, especially for the growing number of people who supported his vision for a sustainable future. As the weeks went by, more voices began to speak out in Musk's defense. Influential figures in tech, business, and politics came forward, publicly endorsing his vision and denouncing the misinformation campaign. Despite the external pressure, Musk wasn't immune to the personal toll. The constant stress, the attacks on his character, and the weight of responsibility began to take a toll on his mental and physical health. He was working around the clock, barely sleeping, and his already strained relationships with friends and family began to suffer. One evening, he sat alone in his office, staring at a screen filled with emails, legal briefs, and financial reports. He ran his hands through his hair, feeling the exhaustion weighing on him. He had sacrificed everything for Tesla's success. But now, with the world watching and the opposition growing stronger, he wasn't sure how much longer he could keep up this pace. His thoughts were interrupted when his phone buzzed. It was a message from his brother, Kimball Musk, who had always been a source of support. "You're going to get through this. But remember to take care of yourself. You can't change the world if you don't take care of your own health first." Musk stared at the message for a long time, feeling a pang of guilt. Kimball was right. But the fight for the future of energy had become his everything. How could he stop when the stakes were this high? Musk had one last card to play. With the legal and political battles intensifying, he had been working behind the scenes to secure new alliances and resources. It wasn't just about Tesla anymore, it was about the future of humanity. And Musk knew that in order to win, he would have to rally the world behind him. He began making high-profile moves, speaking directly to governments, tech companies, and global leaders. His goal was clear: to create a coalition of forward-thinking individuals and organizations that would support Tesla's AI-driven energy system and push back against the forces trying to block it. The next few months would determine everything. Musk's life had become a whirlwind of meetings, court battles, political negotiations, and media scrutiny. The more he fought to push his vision forward, the harder the resistance grew. It felt as if the world was conspiring to halt the revolution he had started. Every time he took a step forward, it felt like forces beyond his control pushed him back 2 steps. But Musk wasn't one to quit. Even when the odds seemed stacked against him, he dug in his heels and charged forward. As he sat in his office late one evening, looking over the latest batch of press articles filled with misinformation, he received an unexpected phone call. It was from an old friend, someone he hadn't spoken to in years, Jack, a former colleague from his early days at PayPal. "Hey, Elon," Jack's voice came through the line, calm but urgent. "We need to talk. I think I can help you with the mess you're in." Musk raised an eyebrow. "Help me? What mess?" "The legal battles, the political pressure, the media circus," Jack explained. "I'm not calling as an old friend. I'm calling because I think I know how to turn this all around." Musk listened intently as Jack laid out a plan that sounded almost too good to be true. Jack had spent the last few years working in Washington, D.C., becoming deeply involved in tech policy and lobbying efforts. Over time, he had built an extensive network of influential people, politicians, business leaders, and activists, who were aligned with Musk's vision for the future. "What if we could turn the tables on your opponents?" Jack proposed. "Instead of reacting to the attacks, we go on the offensive. We create a coalition of powerful voices who will not only defend Tesla but actively push for the kind of policies that would give you a clear path forward." Musk leaned forward, intrigued. "So, you're saying we could flip the narrative? Take the fight to them?" "Exactly," Jack replied. "We take this beyond the courts and the press. We create a movement. One that's not just about energy. One that's about the future of humanity itself. We align Tesla with other industries and voices that are pushing for sustainability, innovation, and technological progress. We stop being the target and become the leaders." Musk felt a surge of hope. He had spent so much time defending himself and Tesla that he hadn't thought about taking the fight to his opponents in such a calculated, forceful way. This was exactly the kind of bold move he had been missing. With Jack's help, Musk quickly began organizing a new initiative, the Future Forward Coalition. The idea was to bring together influential figures from various sectors, tech, environmentalism, clean energy, and even politics, to advocate for the kind of change Musk believed in. This coalition would not only support Tesla but also push for broader systemic changes that would benefit renewable energy technologies, AI advancements, and a future that was more sustainable and equitable for all. The first step was to hold a series of high-profile meetings with major players in the tech and energy sectors. Musk, with Jack's assistance, personally reached out to CEOs of companies like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, as well as powerful environmental advocates and even politicians sympathetic to the green energy movement. It was a delicate process. Many of these individuals had their own priorities and concerns, and aligning them with Musk's vision was no easy task. But Musk's passion, clarity of purpose, and sheer determination proved to be compelling. Slowly but surely, the coalition began to take shape. Musk's first major public event as part of the coalition was a groundbreaking summit held in Silicon Valley. The event brought together some of the brightest minds in technology, energy, and sustainability to discuss the future of the planet. But it wasn't just another conference, it was a statement. A declaration that the forces of innovation and progress were coming together to change the world. The summit culminated in a bold announcement that left the media and the world in shock. The Future Forward Coalition would be launching a global initiative to accelerate the adoption of AI-powered renewable energy systems and technologies across the globe. The initiative aimed to create a new global standard for clean energy, with Tesla's AI-driven grid at the center of it. Musk, standing on stage with his coalition partners, laid out the ambitious plan for the future. "We're not here to be the underdog anymore," he said, his voice full of conviction. "We're here to lead. The future of energy, technology, and the planet itself lies in our hands. Together, we're going to make it happen." The announcement was met with a standing ovation from the audience, but it was the ripple effects that truly shook the world. Within hours, social media exploded with excitement. The hashtag #FutureForward began trending worldwide. Activists, environmentalists, tech leaders, and everyday citizens who supported Musk's vision rallied behind the initiative, showing their support in an outpouring of enthusiasm. The coalition had struck a nerve. The tide was turning. For the first time in months, Musk felt a glimmer of hope that he could truly change the world. The public was no longer just watching from the sidelines, they were joining the fight. But not everyone was on board. The fossil fuel industry, already reeling from Musk's courtroom victories, was now faced with a powerful coalition that threatened their very existence. The backlash was swift and intense. Industry leaders, political opponents, and media outlets that had previously criticized Musk began to ramp up their attacks, using every tool at their disposal to discredit the initiative. The coalition's opponents launched a counter-campaign, portraying Musk as a man with too much power, too much ambition, and too little regard for the consequences of his actions. They labeled the Future Forward Coalition as an elitist group pushing a radical agenda that would hurt everyday people by forcing them to pay higher energy costs. In the face of this opposition, Musk remained unshaken. He knew that this battle wouldn't be won without struggle. But he was no longer fighting on the defensive. With the Future Forward Coalition, he was on the offensive, and that made all the difference. What Musk didn't expect was the groundswell of support that emerged from the general public. Ordinary people, from all walks of life, began to rally around the movement, sharing their stories of how Tesla's technology had already transformed their lives. Homeowners, small business owners, and workers in the renewable energy sector began posting on social media, showing how AI-driven grids had lowered their energy bills, created new jobs, and helped reduce their carbon footprints. The grassroots support for the initiative became undeniable. The opposition was growing louder, but the voices of the people were growing stronger. In response, Musk made another bold move. He took to Twitter, a platform he had mastered in the past, and posted a simple yet powerful message: "This is bigger than any one company. This is about the future of our planet. #FutureForward." Within hours, the tweet had gone viral, amassing millions of likes, shares, and comments. People from across the world chimed in, offering their support and sharing their hopes for the future. The global response to the Future Forward Coalition was unlike anything Musk had ever experienced before. For the first time in years, the headlines weren't about lawsuits, investigations, or controversies. Instead, the world was focusing on a new force for change, a movement that promised to alter the course of energy, technology, and the planet's future. However, with this new prominence came an equally powerful wave of resistance. The fossil fuel giants, not willing to go down without a fight, immediately began using their vast networks to undermine the coalition's efforts. They flooded media channels with ads, op-eds, and expert-backed reports criticizing the coalition's goals, claiming that Musk's vision was reckless and impractical. The political opposition followed suit, fueling fears of economic collapse if Musk's plans were ever fully realized. Musk sat in his office, reading through the barrage of negative press. He'd been through this before. Every time he launched something new, people tried to knock him down. But this time felt different. The stakes were higher. There was more at risk, not just for Tesla or for Musk himself, but for the entire world. Jack had warned him about the backlash, and now it was here. But Musk knew that they had to stand strong. He glanced at the group of advisors sitting across from him. They had been working around the clock to solidify the coalition's message, but now it was time to take action. "We need to show the world what this movement is really about," Musk said, his voice firm. "We can't just sit back and let them define us. We've got to take the fight to them." Jack nodded. "It's time for the first major test. We need to organize a summit, but this time it's not going to be just about clean energy. We need to highlight the bigger picture, sustainability, the economy of the future, and the undeniable fact that we are already making a difference." Months of preparation led to the announcement of the first-ever Future Forward Global Summit, a high-profile event designed to showcase the coalition's initiatives, success stories, and ambitious vision for the future. It was scheduled to take place in New York, a city that had long been a center for political and economic power. The summit would include key figures from the tech, energy, environmental, and policy sectors, as well as renowned economists and global leaders. It was the perfect stage for the coalition to display its strength, unity, and progress. Despite the intense media scrutiny and public backlash, the summit was an overwhelming success. The event kicked off with a powerful keynote from Musk himself. Standing before an audience of thousands, with millions watching from around the world, Musk spoke not only of Tesla's groundbreaking achievements but also of the promise of the future. "This isn't just about creating new technologies or products," he said, his voice resonating through the auditorium. "This is about transforming the very fabric of our society. This is about creating a world where energy is abundant, clean, and accessible to all. A world where technology is used to elevate humanity, not diminish it." His words struck a chord. For the first time in months, Musk felt as though he wasn't just defending himself, he was leading a movement. A movement that had the potential to change the world, one step at a time. The summit was more than just an opportunity to share ideas, it was an opportunity to prove the coalition's worth. Musk and the other leaders of the coalition presented detailed plans for rolling out AI-driven energy solutions, focusing on scalable models that could be deployed in developing countries. They showcased the economic benefits of shifting to renewable energy, emphasizing the jobs, innovation, and growth that could come with it. The centerpiece of the event was the announcement of a groundbreaking partnership with several major countries to launch a new global energy grid. The initiative would link countries across the globe in a vast network powered by solar, wind, and battery storage, all driven by AI technology. This wasn't just an ambitious plan, it was something Musk and his team could actually make happen, and the world was watching. As the summit concluded, news outlets around the world began to report on the event in glowing terms. Musk's vision for a sustainable future had been delivered in a way that was clear, practical, and inspiring. The backlash from the fossil fuel industry was still loud, but the voice of the people was growing louder. Environmental organizations, tech advocates, and even some unexpected political figures began to back the coalition's efforts. Musk knew that this was only the beginning. The real battle was still ahead. The summit sparked a wave of enthusiasm across the globe. Social media exploded with positivity, with people from all walks of life expressing their support for the Future Forward coalition. Videos of the event went viral, and influential figures from different industries began sharing their thoughts on the coalition's impact. But the real game changer came from an unexpected source. A well-known conservative senator, long opposed to Musk's vision, took to social media to praise the summit and Musk's message. He publicly acknowledged that Musk's plans for clean energy were not just feasible but necessary for the future of America's economy. This statement was met with both praise and surprise, as the senator had been a vocal critic of Musk in the past. The endorsement had a profound impact. It sent a message to other lawmakers: it was no longer just about left versus right, this was about the future of the country. Soon after, bipartisan support began to grow for the coalition's goals. Musk's plan for a global energy grid, once viewed as impossible, was now seen as a viable, crucial step toward economic growth and environmental sustainability. Despite the growing support, the opposition wasn't going to let go so easily. Fossil fuel companies and their allies in government began to step up their efforts to discredit the coalition's message. They launched a series of attacks, both in the media and in the courts, attempting to undermine the progress Musk had made. But the opposition's attacks were losing steam. The more they pushed back, the more people rallied behind Musk's vision. The public was tired of the same old politics, tired of the same old solutions. They wanted something new, something that would truly make a difference. And Musk was determined to give it to them. In the weeks following the global summit, the media buzz surrounding the Future Forward coalition showed no signs of fading. Musk's name was now synonymous with innovation, ambition, and the future of clean energy. But with that fame came an increasing wave of resistance. The backlash against his ambitious plans had intensified, especially from the fossil fuel lobby in certain sectors of the political establishment who viewed Musk's vision as a direct threat to their power. Musk had expected this. What he hadn't anticipated was the coordinated, almost feverish nature of the opposition's campaign. They had begun to employ more aggressive tactics, disinformation campaigns, smear tactics, and behind-the-scenes lobbying, attempting to turn public opinion and sway key decision-makers. The narrative they pushed was simple yet effective: Musk is out of control. He's a billionaire with too much influence, pushing a radical agenda that will disrupt the economy and hurt the average citizen. It didn't help that the media, always eager to stir the pot, began painting Musk as an unpredictable genius, someone who had too many projects going on at once, and not enough focus to see any one of them through. Headlines began to emerge that questioned his ability to manage multiple global projects simultaneously. Some even went as far as to suggest that his involvement in too many areas, space exploration, and now energy, was an indication that he was overstretching himself. Musk, however, was unfazed. He knew this was part of the process. The more they attacked him, the more they revealed their fear of change. He had fought for years to prove that a future driven by renewable energy and AI could be both possible and profitable. Now, it was time to put those words into action. Behind closed doors, Musk was preparing for his next move. He had always been a visionary, but it was Jack who had brought him back to the drawing board after the summit. Together, they started to focus on an area that could give the coalition a significant strategic advantage: artificial intelligence. While AI had been a part of Musk's vision from the start, they realized that it was more than just a tool for creating a sustainable future. It could be the key to uniting the movement and gaining political leverage. They began formulating a bold strategy: leverage AI's potential to revolutionize industries far beyond energy. Musk's experience with AI in Tesla's cars, SpaceX, and Neuralink had shown him its immense promise. The idea was to prove that AI could create jobs, drive economic growth, and transform entire industries while reducing dependence on fossil fuels. If they could bring AI to the forefront of public discussion, it might be the game changer they needed. In private meetings with key partners, Musk laid out his plan. He would spearhead an AI-driven initiative that aimed not just at clean energy but at revamping entire industries: transportation, manufacturing, healthcare, and education. AI could optimize everything from production lines to personalized medicine. This, Musk realized, could unite disparate factions under one common cause: the future of technology. The next step in Musk's strategy was to take the fight directly to the heart of politics. The coalition's support had been growing, but it still lacked the legislative push it needed to enact real change. Musk understood that he couldn't afford to rely solely on public opinion and grassroots support. He had to bring politicians to the table. But it wasn't just about convincing the progressive wing of the political spectrum. To truly make a difference, Musk had to win over the moderate and even conservative voices who had traditionally been aligned with the fossil fuel industry. Musk and his team organized a series of high-profile meetings with lawmakers from both sides of the political divide. Jack, ever the skilled strategist, orchestrated these meetings with care, ensuring that each encounter was tailored to the individual politician's concerns. Some were more open-minded, eager to embrace a new, sustainable future. Others were more skeptical, tied to the financial interests of the oil and gas sectors. But Musk had something that few people in politics did: a vision for the future that wasn't just theoretical but already in motion. He didn't just talk about change, he was already implementing it. Tesla's success with electric vehicles, SpaceX's dominance in space, and Neuralink's groundbreaking work in brain-computer interfaces gave him undeniable credibility. At one pivotal meeting, Musk sat across from a Republican senator, a staunch opponent of renewable energy. After an hour of discussing policies and statistics, the senator leaned back in his chair, clearly intrigued. "You're serious about this," the senator said, eyeing Musk with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. "But what about the jobs? What happens to the people working in the fossil fuel industry?" Musk didn't hesitate. "We're not talking about eliminating jobs. We're talking about creating better, higher-paying jobs. Clean energy, AI, and advanced technology aren't just buzzwords, they're industries that will need skilled workers. We can train people, reskill them, and give them the tools they need to thrive in the future." The senator mulled this over, his fingers tapping on the table. "And what's in it for my state? How does this play into our economic interests?" Musk smiled. "We're talking about economic growth. States that invest in clean energy and tech will lead the future. We're not asking for handouts, we're offering a roadmap to economic independence, sustainable growth, and a place at the forefront of the technological revolution. And those that resist? They'll be left behind." The senator's expression softened. "You've got my attention. Let's see what we can do." The political gains were critical, but the real test was yet to come. The opposition, not content to lose ground, was growing more desperate. They began to escalate their campaign, pushing misinformation and fear-mongering tactics. They started claiming that Musk's push for AI-powered energy grids would lead to mass unemployment and economic collapse, using carefully crafted ads and public statements to stir up doubts. The media picked up on the controversy, amplifying the dissenting voices while minimizing the success of the coalition's initiatives. It seemed as though every day there was a new headline questioning the feasibility of Musk's vision, suggesting that he was moving too fast or that the coalition was overstepping its bounds. Musk knew that this was the moment where they either doubled down or risked losing it all. In a bold move, he decided to confront the opposition head-on, giving a live address to the public. He went on television, across every major network, and laid out the facts. "This isn't about me," he began, his voice calm but resolute. "This is about the future. A future where we can have cleaner air, affordable energy, and a thriving economy built on innovation. And to those who would rather drag us back to the past, you're wrong. Change is coming. It's inevitable." His words were measured, his tone unwavering. "We're not just asking for a seat at the table. We're offering a vision of a world that can be better for everyone. A future where technology serves humanity, not the other way around." Musk's bold public address had sent shockwaves across the globe. In just a few short hours, social media erupted with debates, critiques, and support for his vision. The political, corporate, and media landscape was buzzing. The idea of a future driven by clean energy, AI, and sustainable practices was gaining traction, but there was still a significant obstacle: deep-rooted skepticism from those who held power. The fossil fuel industry, along with their political allies, was not about to let Musk's vision come to fruition without a fight. Despite the rising support, the backlash intensified. Corporate-funded think tanks pushed out reports predicting catastrophic economic consequences if Musk's plans were enacted. Alarmist media outlets painted Musk as a self-serving billionaire, more concerned with his personal empire than the welfare of the common people. Yet, despite the negative press, Musk stood firm in his resolve. He wasn't in this for personal glory, he was in it for the future of humanity. The days following the address were filled with tense strategy meetings. Musk and his core team, Jack, the brilliant strategist, Emma, the legal expert, and several key figures from the coalition, gathered in a sleek conference room at one of Tesla's headquarters. The group had grown accustomed to the constant pressure, but they knew that the next move had to be decisive. They were at a crossroads. Would they back down, or would they push forward with everything they had? "I've been reading through the reports, and the numbers are worrying," Emma began, her voice steady but concerned. "The opposition is out in full force, and their messaging is starting to gain traction. People are afraid of the unknown. We need a way to reassure them, to prove that we're not just talking about an idealistic future, we're creating it now." Jack, always thinking strategically, leaned forward. "What if we flipped the narrative? Instead of trying to convince them that we can avoid disaster, let's focus on the idea of opportunity. The future is not about avoiding catastrophe, it's about embracing the future and the incredible potential that comes with it. There's a huge swath of people out there who are scared, but there's an equally large group who are excited about the changes we're making." Musk nodded thoughtfully. "We need a moment that shifts the conversation entirely. Something tangible. Something that can't be ignored. We've been pushing clean energy and AI. Let's combine them. A live demonstration. A working model of what the future looks like." Emma raised an eyebrow. "A live demonstration? You mean like a global unveiling?" "Exactly," Musk said, his voice filled with resolve. "Let's show the world what we're capable of. A fully autonomous AI-powered city that runs entirely on renewable energy. We'll put it in front of the world's eyes. No more talking. No more speculating. It's time to prove that the future is possible, and that it starts now." The room fell silent as everyone processed the idea. It was risky, immensely risky. But it was exactly the bold, visionary move Musk had been known for. It was exactly what they needed to not only counter the opposition's fear-mongering but to change the entire conversation. If they could build a working model of a self-sustaining city, powered entirely by AI and renewable energy, it would be a game-changer. The project, codenamed Future City, was born. The idea was simple: create a fully functional, sustainable city from the ground up. Every building, every street, every system would be powered by solar energy, and AI would oversee everything, from traffic control to waste management. The city would operate on a closed-loop system, recycling energy and resources to ensure its continued viability. Tesla, SpaceX, and the other coalition partners mobilized their teams, and soon, a sprawling location in the Nevada desert was selected for the project. Construction began almost immediately, with Musk at the helm, pushing everyone to work around the clock. Teams of engineers, architects, and AI specialists came together in a way they never had before. The pressure was enormous, but there was an air of excitement too. This was going to be the project that changed the world. As the city took shape, so did the plan for the unveiling. The entire world would be invited to watch as Musk and his team revealed the future of urban living. The live broadcast would be streamed globally, and the world would be able to witness the possibilities of clean, AI-powered living firsthand. Despite the immense pressure, Musk remained focused. Every detail of the city had to be perfect. The architecture had to be both sustainable and aesthetically inspiring. The renewable energy systems, solar panels, wind turbines, and Tesla's state-of-the-art battery storage, had to be optimized for efficiency and scale. The AI systems that controlled traffic, waste, water, and communication had to operate seamlessly. And most importantly, the city had to be a fully self-sustaining ecosystem that could run independently of outside resources. Construction teams worked day and night, often under extreme conditions. Musk was there for every step of the process, visiting the site frequently, ensuring that every element aligned with his vision. There were setbacks, of course, equipment malfunctions, delays, and logistical issues, but Musk refused to let them stop the project. Each challenge only served to fuel his determination. "Once we do this, there's no going back," he would tell his team, his eyes burning with the same intensity that had carried him through the toughest times of his career. This is the proof. This is the turning point. As the weeks turned into months, the city slowly began to take shape. Autonomous vehicles roamed the streets, powered by clean energy. AI-controlled drones patrolled the skies, ensuring that everything from energy usage to waste management was running smoothly. The buildings were designed with cutting-edge materials that maximized energy efficiency, and the air was clean, free from the pollutants that plagued traditional cities. The day of the future city unveiling arrived, and the world was watching. News outlets, social media platforms, and tech blogs were filled with anticipation. Would this be the moment that the world saw Musk's vision realized? Or would it be another spectacular failure? Musk, dressed in his signature black t-shirt and jeans, stood before a massive crowd of journalists, politicians, and industry leaders. Behind him, the city gleamed in the sunlight, a shining example of what was possible. As the press gathered, Musk took a deep breath, scanning the sea of faces. The moment of truth had arrived. "Welcome to the future," Musk began, his voice calm yet charged with energy. "This city isn't just a dream, it's the blueprint for what the world can be. Today, we stand on the edge of a new era. A sustainable, AI-powered, clean energy future that isn't some far-off ideal. It's happening now." He turned, gesturing to the city behind him. "We've built this city from the ground up to prove that the future can be better. It's a city that thrives on renewable energy. A city where AI works alongside humans, not in opposition. This is the world we're striving for, a world that's self-sustaining, harmonious, and filled with opportunity for everyone." As the crowd watched, a series of live demonstrations began. Autonomous vehicles moved through the streets, AI drones patrolled the skies, and energy-efficient buildings lit up with. The world watched, stunned and captivated, as the future city project unfolded before their eyes. Yet, despite the awe and wonder it inspired, there was no denying the deep-seated resistance that loomed. Musk had put everything on the line to show the world what was possible, but it wasn't long before the counterattack began. Corporate powers and industry leaders, particularly those entrenched in the fossil fuel, automotive, and tech sectors, saw Future City not as a vision for the future, but as a direct challenge to their dominance. The headlines soon shifted. Where once there had been admiration, now there was fear. Musk's success had turned him into a threat to the old guard. Almost immediately, a well-funded smear campaign began to gain traction. Think tanks with corporate backing began publishing reports that undermined the entire concept of Future City. They claimed the city was too idealistic, unscalable, and economically unsustainable. A playground for billionaires, they called it. A fantasy of Elon Musk that would only harm the working class. The media pounced on the reports, amplifying every criticism. The narrative shifted from one of admiration to one of concern. Politicians who had previously lauded Musk's vision now hesitated, reluctant to openly support a man who was making such bold moves against the status quo. The pressure mounted, and Musk knew that if he didn't act quickly, his work could be undermined. Sitting in a private boardroom at Tesla's headquarters, Musk stared at the endless stream of critical news reports flooding across his devices. His team was beside him, each of them appearing tense, knowing what was at stake. Musk had been here before. He knew the power of the media and the relentless force of those who wanted to see him fail. "We have to fight back," Musk said, breaking the silence. "The narrative is slipping away from us. We need to be proactive, not reactive. Let's take them head-on." Emma, the legal expert who had guided Musk through many of his battles, looked up from her laptop. "We need a strategy that turns this narrative around. We can't just defend Future City, we need to show the world how it benefits everyone. We need a counter-narrative that highlights the economic potential of the city, the job opportunities it's creating, and how it can be the catalyst for the next era of human progress." Musk nodded. "Exactly. We can't afford to sit back. Let's bring in the economists, the thought leaders, and most importantly, the people who are benefiting from the project. I want testimonials, I want hard numbers, and I want everyone to know that Future City isn't a distant dream, it's a working model of the future." Musk and his team worked tirelessly over the next few weeks to shift the narrative surrounding Future City. Instead of playing defense, they went on the offensive. They hosted a global conference, inviting leading economists, environmentalists, and futurists to speak about the potential of AI and renewable energy. They showcased real-world data on the job opportunities created by the city, as well as the economic benefits it had brought to the surrounding region. They highlighted the sustainable practices in place and demonstrated how the city was already lowering carbon emissions and providing energy to thousands of homes. The media began to shift. Instead of focusing solely on the critics, outlets began interviewing the citizens living in Future City, the workers who had built it, and the scientists who were working on the cutting-edge technology that powered it. What began as a story of skepticism transformed into one of hope. People from all walks of life started speaking out about how Future City had changed their lives. One former factory worker turned engineer spoke of how the project had given him new purpose, while an environmental activist shared how the city had inspired her to believe that sustainable living could be more than just a pipe dream. Slowly, public opinion began to change. Polls that had once shown a deep divide now reflected growing support for Musk's vision. People, once skeptical about the economic viability of Future City, started to see the tangible benefits it was already providing. The number of visitors to the city soared, and people were beginning to view Musk's project not as a utopian fantasy but as the template for the future of urban living. Still, the opposition was relentless. Corporate giants that had built their empires on the status quo continued to push back. Legal challenges mounted. Lawsuits were filed, arguing that Musk's city violated zoning laws, environmental regulations, and even fundamental rights. Politicians, some of whom had once praised Musk's innovation, were now under pressure to act. As these legal challenges began to take shape, it was clear that Musk's next battle would not be fought in the media, it would be fought in the courts. The legal team that Musk had assembled was top tier, but even they knew that the coming battle would be a monumental one. Emma was leading the charge, her calm and focused demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around them. "This isn't just about Future City anymore," she said one evening as she pored over a stack of legal briefs. "This is about the future of innovation in this country. If we let them win this fight, it won't just be a loss for Musk, it will be a loss for progress itself." Musk sat back in his chair, his mind racing. The legal challenges were becoming more intense, and the opposition wasn't backing down. But Musk had never been one to shy away from a challenge. He had built Tesla and SpaceX against overwhelming odds, and he wasn't about to let a few lawsuits stop him now. "We'll fight," Musk said, his voice resolute. "We'll fight in the courts, we'll fight in the media, and we'll fight until the future is ours." The turning point came in the form of a court hearing, where the validity of the Future City project was challenged. It was the first major legal battle in what could become a long series of lawsuits. Musk and Emma were prepared for it to be a drawn-out affair, but what they didn't expect was the surprise witness that would turn the tide. A prominent environmental scientist, who had initially opposed Future City, was called to testify by Musk's legal team. With irrefutable evidence and compelling data, the scientist spoke about the extraordinary environmental benefits of the city. Future City isn't just a model for a sustainable future, it's a beacon for how innovation can coexist with nature, the scientist stated, her voice echoing in the courtroom. The judge, who had previously shown hesitation, appeared visibly moved by the testimony. The tide was beginning to turn. It wasn't just a court case anymore, it was the defining moment. The case had reached the highest levels of the judicial system, and Future City was at the center of a historic legal showdown. The opposition had marshaled all their resources, bringing together powerful corporate lobbyists, legal teams, and politicians to fight Musk's vision. But Musk wasn't backing down. The Supreme Court was about to hear the case that would determine not only the fate of Future City but the very future of innovation in America. Musk stood at the podium in the courtroom, flanked by his legal team. Emma, who had been by his side every step of the way, stood beside him, exuding calm professionalism despite the pressure. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. The media coverage was immense. This wasn't just a legal case, this was a battle for the future of society, a battle between those who clung to the past and those who were willing to embrace a new way forward. The opposition's lawyer, a seasoned veteran with decades of experience, stepped up to present their case. "Your Honor," he began, his voice dripping with condescension, "this project, Future City, is nothing more than a vanity project for a billionaire. It's an attempt to push an agenda that has no place in the real world. It's an untested experiment, a dream that will ultimately fail." The courtroom murmured, and Musk could feel the weight of the skepticism hanging in the air. This was the kind of resistance he had anticipated, but it didn't deter him. He knew what was at stake, and he had come too far to give up now. When it was Musk's turn, he walked up to the podium with his usual quiet confidence. His voice was steady as he addressed the court, knowing that every word mattered. "Your Honor, I understand the skepticism. I've heard it all before. But the reality is, this is not just an idea, it's happening. Future City isn't a theory, it's a living, breathing example of what's possible when we stop looking backward and start looking forward. We've created something that works, something that's already making a difference. We are proving that innovation and sustainability can coexist, that technology and the environment don't have to be at odds." His words hung in the air as he made his case. He talked about the jobs created, the sustainable technologies employed, the community that was already thriving in Future City. "This is more than just a city," Musk concluded. "It's a model. It's the first step toward a new future for humanity. We can either stand in the way of progress or we can embrace it. After weeks of deliberation, the Supreme Court issued its ruling. The nation held its breath. Could Musk and his vision for the future withstand the full weight of the establishment's resistance? When the decision was finally read, there was a moment of stunned silence. The court has ruled in favor of Future City. The project shall continue as planned. Innovation and progress are not just ideals, they are the foundation of our future. A cheer erupted in the courtroom, and Musk's legal team exchanged high fives. Emma was the first to rush to Musk, her eyes brimming with tears. "We did it," she said, barely able to contain her joy. Musk stood motionless for a moment, his mind racing. Victory was sweet, but it wasn't just about the win, it was about everything that had led to this point. The late nights, the battles, the relentless push against every obstacle that had come their way. He had believed in this vision from the start, and now the world had no choice but to believe too. With the court's ruling behind them, Musk and his team moved forward with full force. The next step was critical, making Future City the shining example of what the world could be. The media buzzed with excitement as the city became the focal point of global conversations about innovation, sustainability, and the future of technology. More and more companies were looking to replicate Future City's model, and governments began considering how they could integrate Musk's principles into their own infrastructure. Musk's victory wasn't just a win for him, it was a win for the world. The narrative had completely shifted. Where once there had been doubts, now there was hope. People were beginning to see that change wasn't something to fear, it was something to embrace. The backlash that had once been so overwhelming now felt like a distant memory. And yet, Musk knew that this was only the beginning. Future City was just the first step in a much larger journey. There were other cities to build, other technologies to innovate, and a planet to save. The fight for the future was far from over, but now there was a new sense of unity, a renewed belief that anything was possible. Standing on the rooftop of Future City, looking out over the gleaming skyline, Musk felt a deep sense of accomplishment. It wasn't the first time he had faced overwhelming odds, but this time felt different. The city, now fully operational, was proof that change could happen, and that it could happen on a global scale. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the city, as Musk took a moment to reflect on everything he had accomplished. He thought about the obstacles, the failures, the critics. He thought about the journey that had led him here, and the journey that still lay ahead. "This is just the beginning," Musk muttered to himself, his voice filled with determination. "We're on the edge of something incredible. The world is about to change, and we're going to lead it." As the stars began to twinkle in the evening sky, Musk smiled. Future City was a beacon of hope, a symbol of what could be achieved when humanity dared to dream, and now, the dream was becoming reality. The future was no longer just a possibility. It was here, and it was unstoppable. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?